Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Major development. Today's Tuesday, July 9th. So, I saw this last night, and I just put up the video this morning that I was going to add this to a major development in the story. They're now claiming Biden has Parkinson's. And so this is a huge development in so many ways. I'll show you the clip of a neurologist that went on MSNBC. There'll be stuff coming out all day today. They asked questions to the press secretary about him having Parkinson's, so they're all running with this. What seems like happened was they gave Biden a chance to step down on his own gracefully, and he didn't, so they leaked that he has Parkinson's, which is a disaster for all of them because he just didn't get Parkinson's. He's had Parkinson's for a period of time as president, and if he has Parkinson's, he can't be president. And so, this is a bombshell because it means Kamala Harris has known he has Parkinson's and has been complicit in him, deceiving the American people. I mean, it's a major, for all of us in the truth community and for, the Trumpers, at least on one side of the thing, is that when you accuse or stereotype or profile a certain group of people, like they've done with all of us in the truth community, and as they've done with the Trumpers and the Trump, people who support Trump, and then you behave exactly, and Trump himself, and you behave the way Trump behaves, and you lie and you cover things up and you accuse the other guy of being a liar, and he is a liar. Doesn't mean Trump isn't a liar. It just means that they're the same guy. They're the same from the same mindset. They're the same type of person. And it just shows everyone in the truth community in terms of, we're not going to get a sort of apology or acknowledgement that they are, the scum of the earth, right? There's, problems in the truth community, but the way that they've demonized all of us and the way they're behaving now, right, it gives you cause to doubt everything the government says. If they're going to deceive the American people, their voters, particularly people in the Democratic Party, and put the election at risk. All these people have donated money to Biden. All these people have worked to fight off Trump, right? And they find out they've been lied to. And now, the chance of the Democrats winning the presidency is, and, with the House and it's just a devastation for them, right? Because they've deceived the American people for years now. And so this is a big day for us, like all of us, because we've been proven right in an epic way that they're liars, which we know, but, now it's just right there in front of everybody. And you can celebrate all your Biden relatives who think you're a crazy truther and say they've been lying to you for years. I was right. That the government lies, and there's no difference between Biden and Trump, and there's no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, they have different beliefs and different positions on things, but the way that they behave and what they're willing to do for power and for money and, for whatever to keep their positions and things is the same, right? And so let's get into this thing first. So he showed up on Mika Joe. He called into Morning Joe, Mika Joe. He called into Morning Joe, and they're the worst, and they still asked him some tough questions, and he failed. This is right when the Parkinson thing was breaking. And so these are these two clowns. Mika sucking on a lemon like usual. Joe, being cucked by the lemon. I'm not going anywhere. Defiant Biden's message to Dem critics in MSNBC exclusive.
Now for something a little different, and from inside the White House, we have a special guest joining us now.
He puts the S into special.
46th President of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden.
Joseph Robinette Biden.
Calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
He's so old, they used to name name man Robinette.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumption. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
There you go.
Okay, well,
Okay, so that's, there you go. See, they're humoring him. And these are the biggest shills. They claim to love him. She said she wasn't ready to ditch him. They've been pushing this. But later on this same network, they're going to have a neurologist say, yeah, and he's going to describe, they're going to show pictures or show video of Biden behaving in a way that would indicate he has Parkinson's, right? which is a major issue, right? This is, and he's declining rapidly. So he has to be removed from the presidency. And so, again, the Democratic Congress and the establishment had no leverage to get him to step down. But if he has Parkinson's, he's got to go. And so they outed him, like they're leaking this, right? And even, CNN's on board, MSNBC is sort of wavering. But, there's a handful of politicians that are now defending him. And then you have Kamala, who's had to know. Like, there's no way Kamala doesn't know he has Parkinson's. And, of course, she's defending him, which was self-centered, self-interest, because she knows if he gets elected with Parkinson's, she's president. And so she's, like Van Jones said yesterday, that I showed you in this video they just put up today, that he said they're running Kamala one way or another. This is a vote for Kamala because Biden ain't making it for 4 years.
Mr. President, that leads to the letter that we just received a few minutes ago. And I'm curious, there's a part of it where you talk about the fact that you got 14 million votes, 87% of the vote. It was an open process. You only had 3 people running against you. You have 3,900 delegates. And then you ask this question, do we now just say the process didn't matter, that the voters didn't have a say? I'm curious, is that an allusion also to Donald Trump and the fact that Democrats, you believe, may now be doing the same thing that Donald Trump tried to do in 2020, and that is overthrow the popular will of Democratic voters?
So first of all, it wasn't the popular will because they didn't allow Kennedy to run against him. They didn't have a real primary. There was no campaigning. There was no real candidates. Joe Biden ran unopposed. And he didn't get very many votes because there wasn't very many, there wasn't anything at stake. He was already considered the nominee. And so it wasn't the will of the people because the will of the people was thwarted when they rigged it against Kennedy. Now, Kennedy probably would have lost, but they never did it anyway because whenever there's a primary for an incumbent president, that president loses. And so they like to run him unopposed. They ran Trump sort of unopposed as well. Trump didn't even campaign. There's a couple of, people out there, Nikki Haley, Hickey Nally, and these other clowns that were out there for a brief time, but they had no chance of beating Trump. So this was already presumed for both people. So that's not democracy, right? I mean, they had a real primary for the Republicans, but Trump was already, he didn't have to campaign at all, and he won. They didn't do that with the Democrats because Kennedy ended up becoming independent. He tried to run as a Democrat. But in this thing, right, he's accusing the Democratic Party of trying to steal his nomination, which is the wrong way to go, right?
Well, look, Joe, let me say it this way. The reason I've been out on the road so much all over the country, and while Trump is riding around in a golf cart, filling out his golf cart before he...
Look, she's smiling like he's rocking it. Like he's just there. He's already babbling.
Even hits the ball. But anyway, he hadn't been anywhere in 10 days. I've been all over the country, number one. And I've gone over the country for several reasons. One, to make sure my instinct was right about the party still wanting me to be the nominee. And all the data shows that the average Democrat out there who voted, the 14 million of them that voted for me, still want me to be the nominee.
14 million ain't going to get you there, buddy. I mean, you're supposed to get 80 million votes, and you got 14 million. That's that ain't going to get it done, bro.
One. Number two, the idea that Donald Trump has gained in any substantial way, has his argument to why he should be president is anywhere convincing than it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It's just not there, and we're just starting to focus on Trump.
So he's saying it's just not there. That means that when he goes to pro-Biden rallies, that the people there aren't saying, "Hey, you have dementia and you have to leave," and they're being enthusiastic with him. Plus, it's probably paid people and shills that are there, right? Like they're hand selecting his crowd, just like they're telling the interviewers what questions to ask. He's being completely handled. But the poll numbers and everybody who is aware of what they saw in the debate stage know that he's going to lose, right?
And look, I attended services, spoke to over 600 people at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ in Philly.
600 whole people? Wow, you're definitely going to win.
Stopped by campaign field offices with John Fetterman and Madeline Dean, both strongly supporting me.
Yeah, John Fetterman. You got Fetterman? Okay, as long as you got Fetterman.
The president and the first lady, we spoke at a campaign ice cream social for
Wait, you had ice cream? Okay, there we go.
Council 13 in Harrisburg. 40 minutes after we spoke with supporters. Stopped by Denim Coffee.
So they're giving him positive photos here.
I mean, I was with the governor of Pennsylvania, who's still strongly supporting me. I mean, so look, and
See, the fact that you're talking about a guy who's an incumbent president, who they're saying has been a great he's passed all this legislation, he's done a great job, is so that you're saying that, right? Is that there has to be some big reason. It isn't because they don't like him. It isn't because they've been trying to get rid of the guy. They've been propping him up for years. Now they're saying he has Parkinson's. I don't know if that's true, but he has dementia of some sort or another. He's broken down mentally and physically. The case for Parkinson's looks pretty strong. They could make the case for anything because he's not functioning. Anybody can see it, the way he walks. And the guy gets into the gait of his walk and things, right? So this isn't about people supporting him, people saying that he can't mentally do it anymore.
the fact is that this week I'm going to be hosting NATO Summit here in D.C., going to hold a press conference on Thursday. On Wednesday, I met with the National Youth.
Like, this is where he's a joke and he doesn't even know. Because these are the two most supportive shills this is why he's calling up them. He's calling up the people that he thinks are his most staunch supporters. And they're going to ask him some tough questions here after he gets done babbling about all the things he's about to accomplish and do.
Union leaders of the AFL-CIO. On Friday, I traveled to Detroit, Michigan for a campaign event. Just on down the line. And so I'm not getting any of what I was told. I wanted to make sure I was right, that the average voter out there still wanted Joe Biden. And I'm confident they do. And I'm confident.
That's just not a way to gauge it, right? They're not going to tell you some random person that's a Democrat and a supporter of yours and, is respecting the presidency isn't going to go, hey, you senile F, step the F down, right?
And like I said, the press is with me. I think they've been fairly fair. I haven't read any reporting they did today. But the fact is that, I think they have to acknowledge we had large crowds, enthusiastic crowds. And, and now they're talking about whether I use a prompter. Well, I did it all extemporaneously. The fact of the matter is, I was using prompters too. I don't get that. But at any rate, the bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe
on the phone with President Joe Biden.
I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process.
Look, they're looking at how they're going to end up, asking him questions without being dicks about it.
Where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I just want.
She's like, you got to stop him. You just got to stop him. He's just going to.
I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
So we noted yesterday that it was quite a contrast, the people that were supporting you yesterday compared to, say, a lot of the Washington insiders and Hollywood moguls, and go down the list of very powerful people that want you out compared to the support that you had in Pennsylvania yesterday. That said, there are a lot of
Hollywood moguls, like that's what you guys are going to go to war with Hollywood over this thing? This is all the people that have been shilling for you.
People of goodwill who love you, who believe you did a great job in your first term, who are still concerned. Yesterday, the topic came up of the Stephanopoulos interview where you were asked the question, how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern who believe that losing is.
See, laughing at people and laughing at their, opinion of you. I mean, that was a major gaffe, you said. And, and they're leaving out that he said if he did his goodest. I mean, he said he did his goodest. And Jon Stewart covered this, and he left that out as a comedian. The grown-ass man just said, if I did my goodest.
It's not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option. And I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance with debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I don't want to get into it, but he's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn
I don't want to get into that.
thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days. He's down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not.
Okay, so Trump is a bigger campaigner. He campaigned more last time than you did when he was president. And now he doesn't have to because people in your party are saying you have Parkinson's. Trump has to just sit back, which is the best thing for Trump to do because every time Trump opens his mouth, there's a chance the attention's going to be diverted to him. And so him just sitting back and watching you implode and the Democrats infight is the best thing he can do every day. I mean, it's amazing that he's been as restrained as he is.
I'm running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this.
And I don't know what Trump's doing. Like, nobody cares about what Trump's doing, and Trump won't like that for long. But they're not talking about Trump. It's the first time it's about you, right?
Very beginning. I ran because I never bought on in the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's what the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way...
Boom. You don't care what the millionaires think? Well, you did when they were supporting you.
97% of all the people who contribute to us people make it under 200, contribute under $200. I think we have the largest contingent.
What are they making, under $200 a year?
In history, I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And so
I think it's true. So I just said it. And, no, I don't have any facts to back that up, like I accuse Trump of.
I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any. You see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around and keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done and Trump and his debate night. He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January.
So he's just babbling now, right? Like, this is a friendly pair of people here. These are his shills. These are his biggest shills in the news. And he's he's failing. He's in a comfortable situation. He's calling in on the phone from wherever he is, right? And he's failing, right? He's babbling, and they're not helping him out here.
January 6th, and they claim he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing? This is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I have a few questions, Mr. President.
Okay, so this is where she screws him.
And I know you know where I stand, and yet I have a few questions. First, it's very simple. How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights.
Not understanding dementia, Parkinson's, or any of these other things.
It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21.
So, again, he's trying to talk about his record, which isn't, to the Democrats, it may be good. I don't know. Certainly not to everybody else. But he keeps on talking about his record, and that's not getting it done. And they're not telling him he needs to say something else, right? Like he needs neurological testing
1 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieve student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think I had a significant.
So you're saying having the first black woman in the Supreme Court is evidence that you're not senile, right? Like, what does that even mean, right? Why are you even saying that? He's saying things that just happened, like, all right, something's got passed, but they were out of his hands, right? He nominated somebody. Like, you can be senile and nominate somebody, right? Like, that isn't a mark of your success.
Run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a physical, a neurological physical as well. And
a neurological physical? You had a neurological physical. Do they tap your neurons with to see if your reflexes? I mean, what do you have? He had a neurological physical.
February, it's released. I released all my records.
You saw his records. Well, that's not a neurological test, and now they're saying you have Parkinson, so you're completely effed. But why didn't you say that to George Stephanopoulos? Why didn't you say that? That you had a neurological physical, which is, I don't know what even that is, and no, neither does anybody else because it doesn't exist. If you had neurological testing, then release the data in February, but now you have to have another one after your debate performance, which you refused to have. And, the guy isn't going to want to pass you through when his complete credentials and his career is on the line, because everyone can see you're going to melt down. So any doctor that gives you the green light and chills for you is going to be, under a lot of scrutiny because of just failing to do his job, right?
All of them. And I have a neurological test every single day. Try sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it, both of you know it.
It's a fake laugh. Boy, they're bummed. It's so, they're uncomfortable, right?
But they know it. I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
Mr. President, if anybody in my family had a night like that, like if my Joe had a night like that, or my kids or anybody, I'd probably want
He's heard Joe.
Want to do some sort of workup and medical workup and make sure he's okay. Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might
Boom, so Parkinson's starting to break.
explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Boom. She just stabbed him in the heart. Mika says she's supporting him, but she asked this question because, she isn't going to be, have her career threatened by being a complete, shill like she's been for years. Pre-Parkinson's. Why laugh at that? That's not what's you laughing at her?
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong, I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact.
Okay, so you're not getting tested. Your relatives, they're calling out Jill Biden here. Like Mika's saying that Jill Biden is a poop C word because she's not protecting this guy. Michael Moore said it's elder abuse. And if they're pushing this guy out with Parkinson's, what kind of people are they? What kind of wife is she, right? Like, think about if you had Parkinson's and your wife was like, hey, stop whining, get to go to work, right? Or your husband or your family. Imagine if you had Parkinson's and your family's like, stop, he's fine. Just get out there and keep on bringing in the big body. You just have Parkinson's, right? There's bigger concerns here.
Fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself. Been testing everywhere I go.
Okay.
Because you're testing yourself by doing interviews, which you're failing at. You're failing at this one. Like you're not making sense. This is better than the debate, and still, you're doing poorly.
Out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2:00 in the morning.
You went with COVID?
That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I talked in a large crowd. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania.
Like they know they can't, they have to bail on this guy. I mean, this is how slimy, snake-like these news people are. They're supposed to be supporting them, right?
Look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done except deny and lie about what he's for?
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities are wrong. And let me go through them. The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know which one you're responding to there. Zeke Emanuel. But they are saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward?
My
These are pretty big names.
Is to go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think.
I don't care what those big names think. That's one thing that Trump would say. And so, no neurological testing. I mean, this is what I was saying in my last video. He's the joke, and he doesn't even know he's the joke, right? Like, he thinks he's rocking it right now. These are the two biggest shills that he has, and they're asking him questions that he can't answer them. And they're doing it in the nicest possible way, and they're setting him up, and he can't answer them, right? Like, he's, saying the same things that didn't work in the interview, didn't work in his, when his shills are running out there and saying these things. Everyone's bailed on him, and now they're releasing that he's had Parkinson's, which screws the party. It doesn't screw him. It screws all the people around him. It completely, his wife and his family. They all know he has Parkinson's, and they're still pushing him out there. Like, what's wrong with you, right? Like, and everyone thinking he's so great that you would, he was so magnificent that he could still do this job with Parkinson's. Like, he sucked before he, or whatever it is, right? And so, like, he's gone.
They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave.
No, not all these people in the media said anything about the red wave or these other things, right?
Wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister, anyway. Look, the country, the rest of the world is looking, our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this?
So you have no confidence in Kamala Harris? You have no confidence in any of the other Democratic candidates? You're the only guy. And if you have Parkinson's or dementia, you're better than them, right? Like, you have Kamala Harris, your vice president, who's your backup plan, and you're old as F, and you're saying that she can't step in and deal with these world leaders?
Expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it in Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people, of the nations around the world to deal with China.
She doesn't know about the NATO thing. She has to ask her brother.
With Russia, with everything that's going on in the world. We're making real progress. The Biden plan, which got in Israel for the Gaza Strip, is something that was adopted by the UN Security Council. Whether it comes to fruition, it's awful close. We'll see.
G7. The Biden plan.
But look, I'm not going to explain any more about what I should or shouldn't do. I am right.
Like they're trying to communicate like this. Like, what do we do with this? Right? It's so uncomfortable. When your shills are acting this way, what about the people that are already verbalizing? And then that's your party. What about the independents? What about the people that, aren't convinced about you anyway, right?
I am running. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop me,
if you want to stop me, come what? They interrupted that. He's trying to say something bad here. If you want to stop, see if I get.
I am running. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop me,
I wanted to ask you, it's so interesting. You talked about how...
it's this us thing against them thing, which we have in the truth community, acting like a victim, acting like he's being persecuted, and they're not giving him a fair shake, acting like they're trying to run him out of office, right? like he's some victim. And these are people who are his friends, his supporters, people who are, staunch Democrats. And like, it's a bad look, right? It's bad.
You were supposed to lose in 2020. You won. There's supposed to be a huge wave in 2022. There wasn't. In 2023, Republicans were supposed to win. They didn't. You could say the same thing about France. Le Pen was supposed to win in 2 years ago. She ended up getting crushed. Her party, her far-right nationalist extreme party, was supposed to win yesterday. They ended up getting crushed. I'm curious, what message do you take from the French elections and the British elections? Because we keep hearing about the rise of far-right nationalist extremism in Europe. But I've got to say, it looks like this past week has been the worst week for far-right nationalists between Britain and France. I'm wondering what you say about that and what message you take to NATO allies this week.
Look, Joe, let's get something clear about 20 and 24. Not only were they wrong, I said they were wrong beforehand.
Okay, but 24 hasn't happened yet.
Said we were going to win and how we're going to win. I didn't pretend about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I was surprised. I was not surprised. I predicted it. I knew what we were doing. Number one. Number two, you may remember, I was one of the few people out there publicly saying before the 2022 election, there will be no red wave. There will be no red wave. Because I've been all over the country. I didn't believe it at all. And then in 2023, the key elections, I went into those races. Not every one of them. But
You just said the things that you were supposed to say, right? They're not screwing him with the pictures here. I mean, these are his best possible pictures. But he just lobbed him a question where he was saying, the right-wing wave hasn't happened here in America and not in Europe. And so you could talk about that, like, they regain confidence. But that doesn't mean anything if you have dementia or you have Parkinson's. Like, this is something completely else. Whether Trump can gather enough votes and win is one thing. And they're talking about, well, you're the least likely to win, or, you're damaged goods now. That's politics. This is whether he's mentally competent. And American people don't believe you are, right? Whether you win or not, like, that's a big deal.
a lot of them.
A big effing deal.
Said we were going to win. Look, we won those. So, Joe, it wasn't just that it didn't happen. I was predicting beforehand it would not happen.
Look, she's completely defended here. She's got a fake smile on. They know, like, this guy can't do it. Like, he can't do it here. He's not going to be able to do it in the next debate. He's failed everything that he's done since. He's made gaffes and things like this. Every place he's gone, he gets his, facts screwed up. He's got his, dates screwed up, people's names.
I've got a pretty good political instinct and eye. And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again,
me.
Two reasons, pal. One,
pal. Like, she's calling him pal. That's what he calls people he doesn't like. He's arguing against somebody that doesn't exist here. He called them up because they're his shills.
To rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance. Number one.
This is where you're talking to somebody and they don't understand your questions and your statements, and they just go into these rants, these rambling rants, right? My older brother, who, I don't think has dementia, but in my conversations with him, he's in his 70s, he's telling me the same stories over and over again. Like, and I haven't talked to him in a while now, but, he was telling me the same stories over and over again. He was repeating the stories. Like, sometimes within the same conversation, he would retell me the same story, right? And, it's, no awareness of these things. I'm not talking about like, all right, years gone by, but he would say the same things over and over again. And it's just, there's no like new information or new positions or, just things that were, if it was about truther stuff, because he's like an old school truther, he would tell me stuff that was relevant, 40 years ago, right? 30 years ago.
Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch.
Give me a break. You see how there'll be black people there. Like,
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But any of these guys...
You're talking about the elite now? So you're a truther now, right? You're a Trumper, you're a QB? Is it the elite? What about the deep state? Is the deep state... He's going to be talking about the freaking deep state before you know it. Like he's just...
Don't think I should run against me. Go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention. You know, on Europe, the polls are wrong in France.
So that's where you want people to come at me, bro. Mika, come at me, bro.
They're also right, there's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway, but have you ever, he's such a liar. This guy everybody knows what they're planning to do. And now he's saying, no. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in
You're talking 2025.
Permanent way.
That 2025 thing, whatever it is. But he doesn't know the name of it because of course he doesn't.
This guy is going to make sure that the exact...
So someone should be like, okay, Joe, hang the F up. This isn't going the way we hoped.
Revenge, this guy's...
They're just putting him out there and they don't want to, they keep on rolling him out there like, they're supportive of him and he keeps on doing this, embarrassing himself, right? But ultimately, Parkinson's sets him free of any accountability. And all the people in the party are like, all the people pushing him who knew, they have a lot of questions to answer here. And that's not going to go away, right?
Destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court and he's going to use it.
He's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court. What he does?
The 2025 agenda, this guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for. But anyway, look, and again, think of the...
Look at him, she's just nodding pathetically. Look at him, this is pathetic.
He lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. He said that he's going to, those 10% you're...
Look, they got Fishboy going. They got the pictures of Trump, but the pictures of Biden are just like best.
Universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying it's going to drive...
It's like, it's like you're talking to somebody who you could put the phone down and walk away from it, and you come back 10 minutes later, you pick up the phone, they're still talking. Like he's just disconnected from the listeners. And he keeps on going on. He thinks he's rocking it, right?
Average $2,500 per person. Only jobs we created for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs and bounce back from COVID. Give me a break.
Give me a break. Give me a break. He's repeating Trump's talking points.
He said the convention. At the debate.
Which is it, the convention or the debate?
Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody.
It was your job. Nobody said anything? You meant the reporters? They didn't say anything? They didn't shill for you and protect you because you have Parkinson's? Listen to that MNFer. Like he's...
at the debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything except me and the folks out there in the local...
So you're saying that people didn't talk about his lies? They all talked about his lies, but they couldn't talk about him because everyone was looking at your disastrous performance. Like he just doesn't realize he's the joke, right?
Race, he said, I did nothing to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, he said, I think I encouraged Russia from going, I think he encouraged Russia going in. I'm reading from...
Oh my God, he's just gone.
A list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called Americans in the cemetery.
You're fumbling even now. Like you're fumbling, you're going back over the debate and you're performing the same way And these two people are just sitting there like, oh my God, he's holding us hostage.
In World War I, suckers and losers. And so this guy's going to have to start to answer for what he did. I'm not letting up, Joe. I am not letting up a little bit. And by the way, France registered, look, you talk about Europe. France rejected extremism. Democrats will reject it here as well. Trump, and this is a guy who is an extreme candidate. I can't think of a candidate in my lifetime that's been more extreme. He makes George Wallace look like a patriot.
President Joe Biden, let's make this a thing. Thank you for calling in.
Well, let's make this a thing. Like they're just completely blowing you off. My God, they're like freaking out, right? You're just dissolved in front of them.
We really appreciate it. And thank you for answering our questions.
If you're willing to hear from me, I'm willing to talk to you. Thank you very much.
We will take it on a regular basis.
Right. We'll take it. We'll take it right up there. Boop.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Take it in the boop.
Greatly appreciated.
President Joe Biden.
So that video got 500,000 views. This video got 150,000. So these are big videos for MSNBC. Neurologist comments on Biden's health.
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board-certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's.
So I guess he had 9 visits with Parkinson's experts. That's what that woman must have been just saying. They cut that off, but here's this guy. Okay, so I'm editing. It's Tuesday, July 9th, 11:30 a.m. I'm editing what I shot this morning. And so what I didn't know was there had been 8 visits to the White House by Parkinson's specialist. And Karine Jean-Pierre, extension, remember that? She tries to blame soldiers, which this guy's going to talk about here. He's going to say, yeah, that's not true, because this happened after the White House briefing, but I'll show you the White House briefing after this. And so it's an absolute mess. So what we do know now is there may be as many as a dozen visits by a Parkinson's specialist to the White House, but they're saying that Joe Biden checked out fine, and they won't answer the question whether a Parkinson's specialist saw Joe Biden. So the answer is yes. So this is getting bad. And this guy is brutal. This thing is devastating, this guy's commentary. I mean, devastating to the ability for them to lie about Joe Biden not having Parkinson's. But in terms of, the American people are dopey and aren't thoughtful and, can't make decisions. So, I mean, they still might vote Biden in, but,
all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent.
It says here, Parkinson's expert visited White House 8 times. So if they've had a Parkinson's expert out there 8 times, then he has Parkinson's, or at least that's what they're saying now. They could be trying to figure out the best possible spin for this, but if they think he has Parkinson's, right, if they're bringing an expert out there, then they know he has Parkinson's, and they don't know when that started and how long they've known.
Here, you've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the same room as
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks, have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering.
Word retrieval area, this sucks for him, right? Because this guy's like, yeah, he totally has it. There's no doubt about it, because you could see that he's not functioning, right? The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he struggles, and how lost he is, and just his expression on his face. Like I've been pointing out, his expression, he's gone.
Stuttering, though, could that be part of that too?
So the guy talked about stuttering.
is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemino dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of en bloc turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's.
Oh, shit, right? This is bad, right? Because, we all seen that shit, right?
Rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
You could have diagnosed him from across the mall. You could see this guy walking through the mall and go, oh, wait, that guy's got Parkinson's. And, when you're an expert in something, when you're somebody who does something professionally, day in and day out, you see things. Like I see things because I look at the news, just from doing this job over and over again. You just get better at stuff. That's what happens. Anything you do in life, you get better at it, right? Like you see things differently than people who do it as, the novices. And I read people, I've been doing this for a while as a counselor and as a preceptor doing the Sajmarg, meditation and just, my natural abilities in this area, right? But, it isn't hard to see with Joe Biden. Like most people look at Joe Biden and go, all right, that guy is mentally deteriorated in some way, right? And neurodegeneration, as this guy put it. And this is what this guy does. He diagnoses people with Parkinson's, and some guy can walk into his office and he's like, all right, you got it, I can just tell. And Joe Biden has been exhibiting these symptoms. The rigidity of walking has been going on for at least, it started back in 2020, and it's gotten worse. The tremors, I've been pointing out him shaking, his hand shaking and things like that. That's been going on for years now. And then probably medicating these things to suppress them. His slow movement, his masked face, his softer, low voice. These are all things that have been going on for 5 years. And they've all gotten worse over time.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had them up there on the screen, if we can put them back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks sometimes. It's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps.
Shuffling gait. That's why he tripped on can't pick up his feet anymore.
Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And en bloc turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. Yeah.
But I also know, tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
The expression on the guy's face. Let's watch that again. That was classic. Like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
It's not simple.
Let's go back a little bit further.
I also know. Tell me if I'm wrong here. It's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
Right.
It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives.
This guy's got it.
Who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. If a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you.
A med student could. So he's not talking about just somebody who's a Parkinson's specialist. He's talking about every doctor, because he's saying a med student should be able to do this. So every doctor that Biden has signed off on Biden should have said, oh, this guy's got Parkinson's. And so they have known for a long time. That means Kamala knows, has been covering it up. That means Jill has been pushing him out with Parkinson's. It means the whole Democratic establishment in the White House has known this guy has Parkinson's and has kept it from the American people. Because when he started to show these walking movements, and it was over a year ago he tripped on the sandbag, but he's been walking like this forever. Like this has been 2-3 years where it's been, tripping upstairs, falling upstairs, and these things, like walking up the stairs and falling. Like how many times that's happened? They had to make it smaller stairs for him, special stairs, because he can't get his feet up anymore. So this has all been covered up. They've been covering it up by making smaller stairs, right? Like this is bad.
If you had, and I know you can't, you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that? I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's, chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded mean the military would not let you. If you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are.
You mean like commander in chief?
So you're saying you don't necessarily believe
Medical boarded out, so he would be. If he had Parkinson's, they'd have to retire him.
And they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House that are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could.
Oh, they're saying that some guy had Parkinson's and that they were checking him.
Be in the military.
And then, a lot of people.
So he's saying they're lying. Like he just called them liars.
Called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonisms. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say as many words as you can in a minute that start with F. Block building, retrieval. I may say cup and have you recall it 3 minutes later. Trail drawing. These are done with a professional, PhD in neuropsychology. Has nothing to do with psychiatry. And we can tell if you have vascular.
It's 4 hours long?
4 hours. It's a full day. We tell people bring a snack. It is a full day. And so not the MOCA, which was a bedside test that President Trump took. These are tests that are screening tests. They don't rule in, if you do great.
There's no way to sort of lie in this test, to sort of ace it, even though you're.
It's not going to ace it.
No way. This one will come out in the wash. For example, if I do the bedside exam to an accountant and I ask them, what's 100 minus 7? Even the worst neurodegenerative patient, if they worked at a high education level or something like that, is going to get that right. But in the 4-hour test, it will come out.
Finally, I mean, you said you're a Democrat, you're a doctor. You sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, I'm an American before everything. And I look at it and say, when I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea, when they just make outrageous things, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on and they say, oh, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years, my own party had 4 years to find, this was a wreck in slow motion, and they had 4 years to find, out of 350 Americans, one person that could take the place. And here we are the day before school trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease.
Dr. Pitts, we thank you for joining Top Story. And again, I know you've never examined.
Boom, that was brutal. that was freaking brutal. That was absolutely brutal. Like they had 4 years, so he knows that he's known for 4 years. And he's been watching this guy and watching the Democrats cover this up and then have this disaster 3 months before the big election, Trump's re-election, right? I mean, just a disaster. And this was brutal. Okay, so moving forward, I just scroll through Morning Joe because my YouTube TV app tapes it, and I can tape the thing off the phone. And so I wanted to see the end of the interview, and I got some clips about that, like this whole thing about the elites and the Hollywood elites and where that came to play, because that's hilarious. They're now stealing the truther and the right-wing truthers, the idea of the elites, this thing, they're hijacking it, right? Morning Joe, and the whole thing I got to say about that. But we'll come back to that later. But we now know there's a name for Dementia Gate, and it's Parkinson's, right? They have a diagnosis now sitting there, very credible. I mean, that guy is completely 100% believable. And, they're talking about Hillary having Parkinson's. Remember that? Then people are saying she had Kuru, and there's all these things. But Joe Biden, based in the gait in which he walks and his neurological degeneration, has Parkinson's. And it's been obvious, and they've been covering it up. There's a name, and this has been resolved to some extent. And we're going to see where that goes. But apparently, this person, so I'll get to the beginning of this thing. She was asked about Parkinson's, and I'm not going to find that. But let's start at the beginning here. We'll start off here.
Long things, long toppers at the top. Just warning you all, no falling asleep, please. Okay, so we've gotten more strong economic news in recent days. On Friday, our economy created more than 200,000 jobs.
Look at how excited she is. So look at how excited she is, right? Like, what? Like, the White House is melting down around you. So, like, she's going to give her statement, and then Biden's defiance to stay in race is from MSNBC. Okay, so they rolled an admiral out. So it's 38 minutes into this hour and 16 minutes press conference. And they rolled an admiral out and, talked about the good economic news. And then this happens.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Admiral. Okay, well, all the debate questions have been answered. Press conference answered. Let me close my book and get out of here. Hi, Zeke.
Thanks, Green. My first to you is on the credibility of this White House when it comes to talking about the president's health. When you were here last Tuesday, you were asked if the president had had any medical examinations since his physical in February, or that included the time period after the debate. You said flatly no. 3 days later, you admitted the president had a quote, short check-in with the medical team thereafter. I mean, those are two very different answers.
No. Actually, if you were to listen to I think I did a 30-minute gaggle on Friday, 30 minutes with I think it was with the pool, and I said he did not have a medical. I cleared it up. You're right. You're correct. I said he didn't. I still stand, but he didn't have a medical exam. I said that in the gaggle, and you're right. I said that in the briefing. He had a check-in with, and he said this on Friday. He had a check-in with his.
He said he had COVID or some sort of virus, and he was so sick it was debilitating. Caused him to have a complete neurological breakdown. Caused him to have Parkinson's for a whole debate, right?
With his medical doctor, which is something that he does a couple times a week, as you know, and I stated this as well. He has, for those who don't know, obviously outside of the briefing room, outside of the White House, many Americans don't actually understand this, so let's take a step back. They deal with their medical issues or physicals very, very differently. They are they are lucky if they get to see their doctor once or twice a year, right? They have to get in a car, they have to either take public transportation in order to make that happen. The president's medical unit is literally down on the other side.
So where's his Parkinson's specialist?
Of the colonnade is just down the steps from the residence, and so a couple times a week he does a check-in, a verbal check-in with his doctor while he's exercising. That is something that happens often. Matter of fact, he did a check-in today because I know folks were going to ask about if he was tested for COVID. He was not. We are following CDC guidance. He was not tested for COVID, just to let you guys know about that one. And if he has any symptoms, obviously we would test him.
Is that in the context of the second gentleman's diagnosis?
Yes, which is why. No. It's in context of the second gentleman. But to answer your point, he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical. He did do like a verbal check-in with his doctor a couple days after the debate, and it was very quick. It was a couple of words that were spoken to each other.
So, after that disastrous debate, there was nothing there when people are concerned for him?
And that's how we were able to give you that answer. But he did not have a medical exam. He did not have a physical.
You said no, though, last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Was did you know about that verbal check-in, or did we just not ask him precise enough questions?
So the line of questions that I was getting that day was, in the way that I was hearing the question was
Okay, so this is just move forward here.
had a comprehensive,
Okay, this is about neurological stuff here.
still thinking about the medical exam. I was still thinking about the physical. That's how I answered the question. And then when it became, when the president actually spoke to it, I went back, asked the medical doctor, and he said they had a verbal check-in. That's what he said. But in answering the question, I was talking about the medical exam. I was talking about the physical.
And then two quick ones. There's been a lot of reporting in the last 24 hours about a Parkinson's expert who's come to visit the White House almost a dozen times over the last year or so, including at least one meeting with the president's physician. Could you state, like, very clearly, yes or no, was that expert here to participate in anything surrounding the care of the President of the United States?
So let me just say a couple of things. We have had a comprehensive, and I just want to take another step back, comprehensive physical examination. The president has had that. We've given a comprehensive report. We've shared that the past 3 years. Every year that he has had this exam, he sees a neurologist. And just to give you a quote from that, from the report most recently in February, an extreme.
He's got Parkinson's. We know that, right? So you squirming here ain't going to make it go away.
Detailed neurological exam was again reassuring in that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorder such as a stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis, end quote. So that came directly from.
So Biden saying he didn't get any neurological examination. He's not aware of that because in the interview he said he didn't get any. He hasn't seen one. But now they're saying he's seen a Parkinson's specialist.
In February, in that comprehensive report that was provided by the president's doctor to me, that I share with all of you. So anyone who is watching can certainly go to our website.
The question, which was this expert's visits, was multiple visits to the White House pertaining at all to the president's
Well,
care?
here's the thing. I've said he has had three. He has had three physicals. In those 3 physicals, that's when he has seen a specialist, a neurological specialist. I have to be super mindful here, and this is why, and I'll explain this to you in a second. There are thousands of military personnel who come onto this White House. Many of them get the care from the White House medical unit, and so need to be super careful. There are, the medical unit hosts a wide range of specialists, from dermatologists to a neurologist, and so I cannot speak to every person because there's actually a security reasons to protect their privacy. We respect and protecting people's privacy, so do not want to share. I'm not going to share people's names from here, but the president, I can tell you, has seen a neurologist 3 times, as it's connected to a physical that he gets every year that we provide to all of you.
Okay, so he's seen the Parkinson's guy. She's saying 5 times was from unnamed military guys. This is what the guy was addressing, because this came after this, what I showed you with the doctor, the specialist. And so what he was saying is if some person had Parkinson's in the military, they would be bounced out of the military because you can't do military activities. And so Biden has seen a Parkinson's specialist 3 times. At least that's what she's admitting to. Not really, because I'm editing and I know it's coming up, but eventually she clears it up and says she can't even acknowledge that a Parkinson's doctor came to the White House because of confidentiality. And so that's just a fancy way of saying, yeah, Biden's been diagnosed with Parkinson's, so we got to just make this as convoluted as possible. And then 5 times somebody else, which makes no sense because who has Parkinson's? Why would they bring a Parkinson's physician into the White House with the, president's current state of being? When you're trying to hide something, they're hiding his neurological disorder. And there's going to be speculation, like we just saw with this doctor, which is a diagnosis. Like he said, a medical student could diagnose Biden just based in all the symptoms, what he's presenting, right? When I used to do personality, psychological assessments, you read the person, right? You look for symptoms, you look for the, behaviors of the person. And there's these various things called differential diagnosis, where if you're going through the DSM-5, schizophrenia might also be what used to be called the multiple personality disorder that's now called dissociative identity disorder. There's these various things, right? Narcissistic personality disorder could also be borderline personality disorder. So you look for little indicators that it's one thing or another, right? It's called differential diagnosis. And so when they're looking at what he said, the difference between Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, early stages of Parkinson's, it could be Alzheimer's. But he was saying as these, motor degeneration, these things happen, these neurological degeneration happens, and affects the guy's walk and these other things, then you go, all right, it's Parkinson's, right? It becomes obvious because those symptoms don't exist with Alzheimer's. So that's how far along Biden is, and they've known about it. And so for her to dismiss this, so for them to bring in a Parkinson's doctor into the White House, which can later be found out like it is now, for somebody else, that makes no sense, right? Why would they bring him into the White House? Only for the president. Everyone else can go out to the doctor, if you want to see somebody like that, because you don't want this to come back to the president, right? And they're handling of this. And so, they're getting caught lying about this. And how long have you been covering up? And this guy said for the last 4 years, this Parkinson's specialist has known Joe Biden has Parkinson's. Since the very beginning, they had 4 years to bring somebody else in. And now they're scrambling. He's pissed off because he's a Democrat. I mean, that's the way he ended it, right? And now this is coming up here, and it ain't cool, right?
It's a very basic, direct question.
Wait. Hold on. Wait a second.
Eight times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
Not what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please.
Okay, you're a liar. You've been lying. You got caught lying about his examination. The president said he had no neurological tests. Now you're saying he had multiple ones with a Parkinson's specialist. You guys can't keep your story straight. Once it comes out, the idea of Parkinson's is out there, then it's like you're effed. Like if nobody's saying Parkinson's, it's fine. But now that people are saying Parkinson's, and medical professionals are going to comment about this, like this guy did, and no one's going to want to say he doesn't have it, right? And Sanjay Gupta says he should have neurological examinations. You can't say that's just the elite being elite, right? Which we'll get into after this.
So every year, around the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what
a physical once a year for a guy that old.
What I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you.
Every time a president gets a little bit sick, especially someone this old, and he has all these duties, they're going to come in and check his blood pressure, check his vitals, all the times he's fell. Like how many times has he fallen down? We fell off the bike, he didn't see somebody to make sure he was okay, right? When he fell on the stage, when he's tripped on the stage, these things.
Right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're
Dr.
asking
Kevin
me.
Kennard come to the White House
But I
specifically about
also
the
said to you,
president's condition.
Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names.
You cannot
We
share
have to
names
we have
of
to.
others he would have met with.
We
But
cannot.
You can share names
No.
in regards to if someone came here in regards to
we
the
cannot
president.
share. We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect.
It's public.
I understand that. I hear
It's
you.
right there for anyone to see.
Ed, I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think
It makes no sense. Did Joe Biden see a guy for Parkinson's? You would say yes. You would say no if the answer was no. If it's yes, well, you're going to say something else.
they would appreciate that too. We have to give them.
Discussion of the doctor.
We have to keep their privacy.
It is public information.
I hear you.
And you're going to allow this to fester longer, Karine, unless the White House answers the question.
Hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way.
Miffed around here about how information's been shared with the press corps about him.
What are you missed about? What are you missed about?
Everything he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that you guys asked.
Correctly, you didn't have to come back and clean up.
I never answered the question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question.
Okay, so these are lawyer speak, trying to justify you covering up and having a different story than Joe Biden, because Joe Biden's just saying shit, right? Joe Biden's just out there saying shit. He's not controlled. He's like, he's going rogue on himself, right? He's going rogue on his own team that's trying to cover up for him because he's got, probably Parkinson's. I mean, I would say, other than this being some bogus official story rollout, I mean, they said the same thing about Hillary, but not like this. This wasn't being said by the media. But it looks like Joe Biden has Parkinson's. I mean, based on a very credible report from a doctor and neurological degeneration that he expressed in the symptoms, explain his walk, explain his stiff turning and things like this, that made 100% sense. And so now there's a Parkinson's doctor that's gone to the White House, and Joe Biden said he hadn't seen a neurologist, but you're saying he sees one every year, and that neurologist is the guy for Parkinson's, but you won't say that because you don't want to wreck somebody else's, you don't want to out somebody else in their confidentiality because there's lower members of staff there that are getting visits from a Parkinson's specialist. Come on.
Question that I answered. And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam, and I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president...
The president said he wanted to be tested for COVID.
...has a couple times a week. A couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not sharing, confirming names from here. It is a security...
The security, Rich, they know that the Dr. Kevin Kennard, a Parkinson's specialist, has been to the White House 8 times, and you're not going to say anything because it's a security risk.
I am not going to do that, Ed. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me. I'm not going to confirm a name. It doesn't matter if it's even in the log. I am not going to do that from here. That is not...
Not from here. You can look at the log, and once the name's out there, it's no longer confidential. But, I'm not going to do it.
Something I am going to do. What I can share with you is that the president has seen a neurologist for his physical 3 times. 3 times. And it is in the reporting that we share a comprehensive reporting. Matter of fact, it's more than what the last guy shared. And
it's got to bring Trump in. It's got to be Trump's fault.
In line with what George W. Bush did. It's in line with what Obama did. And so it is comprehensive. It is out there. I just read a quote from it, but I am not going to devolve somebody's name or confirm someone. I'm not going to do that. That is as privacy for that person.
Yeah, because that would mean that you would have to then say, yes, the president saw a Parkinson's specialist. Yes, we've been concerned that he might have Parkinson's. Yes, actually, we know he has Parkinson's because this has been going on for a number of years now. And yeah, we've been covering up. And we knew about this whenever the first time he came to the White House, the Parkinson's specialist, or even before that, and we ran him anyway. And now we saw the debate performance, which shows to everybody this guy's got neurological degeneration, which is Parkinson's. And so we now know that we've covered up, and sorry, you guys. And I guess we're going to vote for Kamala.
I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me from here. I'm just not going to do that. It is inappropriate. It is not acceptable. So I'm not going to do it.
Not about the name.
Go ahead.
If you cannot confirm the name, can you confirm whether or not the president has seen this Parkinson's specialist? And you mentioned 3 times, but the visitor logs show a duration of 8 visits over 8 months. I think that is the crux of the question.
But I also said there are thousands of military personnel
that all have Parkinson's. Like they
that come to the White House, and they are under the care.
So this was, the doctor said, yeah, it was for him because you'd be bounced out of the military. So you're lying. They don't have Parkinson's. You can't be, these guys are walking around the White House with a gun and Parkinson's.
Of the medical unit. They are.
So can you confirm that the Parkinson's visits, specialist visits, were for the president or not?
What I can tell you is that the president has seen a neurologist 3 times, and I read to you what the neurologist has said, and I read to you the last line. I could say it again. No findings which would be consistent with any cerebellum.
So, you know, he's lying, right? So it's on him, and that's his fault for lying. You guys going to destroy that guy's career when this all goes south? Like, American people and everyone's been noticing his neurological breakdown, and you guys are still pushing this bullshit, right?
Or other central neurological disorders such as stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or
Parkinson's, like they just don't want to say the word.
ascending lateral sclerosis. That is from February. That is coming from February. That is what the medical unit, the president's doctor, shared. And I said to you, it's happened 3 times. Each time there is a physical.
Okay, did he ever see a guy who was a Parkinson's specialist? No, an unnamed guy. Not those 8 visits, any visits. Has he ever seen anybody? How many times has he seen a Parkinson's specialist?
Occurs, and we put out a comprehensive report. That is when he has been able to see a specialist. So that's what I can share.
Question on this. Has the president, you mentioned Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, all of these things. One diagnosis that we have heard of, potential diagnosis, is hydrocephalus, which is fluid buildup in the brain. It's something we've never heard in any of the medical reports. Is that something that the president has been evaluating?
If it's not in the medical report, obviously it's not something that the president is dealing with. Well, I can tell you this. Just going back.
All right, so she's just going to stonewall. But this is the first questions are about Parkinson's, right? And so they did all this other bullshit about the economy. They brought out a military guy, and everybody's all about Parkinson's. Okay, so I just searched the word Parkinson's, and this is the picture of the guy. This is the guy right here, right? This is the guy. They're using Joe Biden as the picture of Parkinson's, right? Stooped posture, masked face, back rigidity, forward tilt of trunk, flexed elbows and wrist, reduced arm swing, hand tremor, tremor in the legs, slightly flexed hip or knees, shuffling, short, stepped out gait. This is Joe Biden. This is the guy they're using. They're using Joe Biden as the definition of Parkinson's. I mean, this is what it is right here, right? These were the different. These are the different things here, and one of them's Joe Biden. And if we go to news, it's all about Joe Biden. Biden has seen a neurologist outside annual physical. Doctor says Parkinson's specialist evaluated Biden for physical. White House says. So now they're saying it is. White House doctor offers explanation for Parkinson's expert visits. Parkinson's specialist met with Biden's physician at White House earlier this year. And so now it's coming out that it's Parkinson's, right? And that ain't going back in the box because they're literally using the picture of Joe Biden. They're using Joe Biden's picture as the definition of Parkinson's. Like, this is hilarious. Like, again, I'm not, wishing Parkinson's on somebody, but this whole thing is hilarious, right? Looks like Joe Biden right there. And that's just, me looking into it just briefly here. There's videos here, and we'll do more of this stuff here. Michael J. Fox, of course. So these are the things that are out there. Biden displays Parkinson's symptoms. Dr. Drew Pinsky, they got him. I don't know if that's a win or a loss for them because he's a shill. So he's got Parkinson's. That's if they're denying it and they're using the image of him, well, that's wonderful. I'm gonna go show this image to my wife so we have a laugh about it. Okay, as I was saying earlier, I got a bunch more there's more stuff coming in. All this stuff's flying in, but I want to get to this. So after I saw the Morning Joe interview, I wanted to see the reaction after Biden left. And it's kind of epic. But before that, so I have the YouTube TV app, and I record a variety of news shows. And I used to be able to record them off of my computer, but then they started to block my app, which is the whole thing. But I can record them off the TV. And so I ate breakfast, and I went and looked at Morning Joe from yesterday. And I scrolled through 4 hours of Morning Joe, and 80 or 90% about it was Biden. Like, I'm scrolling through it, and it's pictures of Biden and people talking about Biden and, banners, these headlines about Biden. And that's a reversal from Trump, right? Usually you'd scroll through something like that, and it'd be 90% about Trump, pictures of Trump, videos of Trump, Trump, right? And that's what's happened. Biden is now, being focused on. And so this was what they were saying first, and then I'll show you what they were saying afterwards. And it was Joe Scarborough who had this idea to go after the elite, and Joe Biden capitalized on it.
Biden's brushing everyone off. He's like, hey, people have been telling me not to run for president since 1988. I think I know what I'm doing.
So Jimmy Fallon sucks, probably even worse than Colbert and Kimmel's, if that's possible. But he's certainly the most lightweight of them. And he's already going in after Biden. Because, that brings Biden's past history up of plagiarism and then all his failed attempts at being president.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Tuesday, July 9th. Good to have you with us.
It's pretty incredible what's been happening. By the way, I found out this morning, Wall Street Journal editorial page, you and I were very relieved that the president didn't say we were elites. I mean, what? Turn up truck.
So as it turned out, Joe Biden showed up right before the end of their show. I think their show ends at 10. And they, you'll see the aftermath. I have the brief time afterwards. And, it was a disaster. And you had to know. When Mika said that pre-Parkinson's, like, come on, he's got full-blown something, right? And it's Parkinson's. But when she was asking him the question, she said, you think you might have pre-Parkinson's? No, he's got full-blown. But it was a disaster, right? His conversation with them, because of the everything else is going on with it, because it was a friendly environment. And so, but I also found another part, which I'll show you here in a moment, where he was the one to go after the elites. Joe Scarborough was. And so that was a reference to Biden stealing the truther, the elites, the truthers talk about, and, the Trumpers and the QBs stole that from the truthers, right? He stole that from us. But I'll, I don't use it anymore. I call them the controllers. But this idea of the elites, and because they never can think of their own things. But let me show you the rest of this here.
Dumb country.
I missed that. I'll have to take a look at that.
Come on, what's nothing elite about me.
Okay, so these are some of their houses that they have. Look at that big giant one here. This one here, look at it. She sold this when they got together. And so these are, she's a long time. Her father, Zegdegubrouf Brzezinski, here's So Joe Scarborough has several residences inside where Morning Joe hosts lives. Where does he live? He's got multiple properties, right? New York properties. And so it's one's worth $3.6 million. He's got one in New Canaan, Connecticut. Some of these other things, right? And so they got these big-ass houses. So he's saying Morning Joe's studio apartment in Miami. So they have something in Miami going on there. There's the inside of it here. So I guess he works out of Miami. Gets a new home studio inside Mika and Joe's Miami apartment. Because you see, they very seldom have guests over. They used to have a round table, but now they just do it Skype-wise. And so, they have some Miami home. There's their house in Miami here. So this is some of their houses here, some of their previous houses. So this is their, big house in Miami. His net worth is approximately $25 million. And so what is he talking about? He's not elite, right? He's not elite. They did the same thing with Michael Moore. Michael Moore's worth $50 million. And then they were saying he was one of the 1%. And he got all whiny about it. But yeah, if you have $25 million, you're part of the 1%. And, and then whatever Mika has, right? And so his annual salary is $8 million. They pay him $8 million for that crap that he does. $8 million. And what do they pay Mika? And so Mika, she's worth $20 million, so they're worth $45 million together. And she's got a salary of $8 million as well, because, you know, they're equal partners. So they make $16 million a year between the two of them, and they have $45 million in assets. And he's trying to say he's not an elite. He's just a country lawyer.
Okay.
Man of the people, Caddy. Caddy can tell you, I'm a man of the people.
Caddy can confirm.
Caddy, though, this is what I find. Also, he's not.
Let's try and get some organization here.
I have people keep coming up going, I hope you and Mika are okay. So apparently, some right wing something said that we were fighting each other over Joe Biden and got really testy.
We had a semi-vigorous debate.
So Biden called up, and I don't know how much they knew ahead of time, but they clearly weren't prepared for it. And, you know, I showed you it. You guys watched it. I listened to it again with my wife. We went somewhere a little while ago. So I've heard it two and a half times now. And it's great because of all of it and how big of shills these guys are. And he was just hitting him in the face with Parkinson's, right? He was slapping in the face with his big boop of Parkinson's. And, you know, they were uncomfortable because there was times that he should have stopped talking after a minute. He wasn't answering the questions. He was just saying the same old things he's been saying now. He went back through the debate. He went back through the interview stuff. And he was just demonstrating the same stuff. And they were clearly uncomfortable because they knew, you know, he was demonstrating all the things that they're defending him for. Mika wants him to stay. She acknowledges the debate is bad, but she thinks he should stay, even if he's, you know, got Parkinson's. I mean, she even mentioned it. And Joe Scarborough is like on the fence, but thinks everyone should give him a chance, right? And there's some of the few media holdouts, and their own network is turning on him, and certain CNN has already gone south on him, and we'll show more about that in a bit. And so all of this is happening, right? And they're uncomfortable. They're talking. She has a defensive posture. They're talking to each other. And so people interpreted it that they were having a debate about it, but, you know, they didn't know what to do with this senile president.
It does not get testy. You should see at home when she tells me to take out the trash at 10 at night. That's when it gets testy.
No, I mean, seriously, we've had bigger debates.
We have had bigger debates. All right, so we're fine. Can we hug each other?
No,
she doesn't.
She doesn't like to hug. Should we hug each other? No, that. Don't touch me. Don't try to mount me. So, Mika, you know, Mika's the power top. but anyway, Joe Scarborough's the bottom. If you did get if you did figure that out on your own. But anyways, so that was from today, Tuesday, July 9th. This video is probably coming out the 10th. I mean, I already have a long video I just released today, so maybe later on tomorrow afternoon. And I have more stuff to show you and all these things, and maybe stuff from tomorrow that hasn't happened yet. And there's a press conference coming in right now, so we'll see. There'll probably be more of this stuff covered. And so anyways, I watched some of the part from yesterday. I was just scrolling through, and I just hit this perfect spot where I saw a graph. So then I turned on the volume and I listened to it. This is before Joe Biden called in, and Joe Scarborough's bragging about his tweets, right? These are, you know, this is becoming more and more common for these clowns to show you their tweets. These people at the news media. Look at what I said on Twitter, like it's news.
There it is. For a man who's given more than 50 years of his life to public service, it is more than fair to take a breath and see what happens over the next few days. Well, those few days have turned into about a week and a half. And here we are, and I find it absolutely fascinating. We're going to get to the Bloomberg polls that came out this past weekend, and I've already talked about the Cena poll that shows Donald Trump losing independence. I mean, after Joe Biden's debate performance. But Joe Biden now has what I would dream of having if I were running for president of the United States in his position. I've got Washington insiders against me. Well, let's put it the way it is. Joe Biden now can say he's having to fight media elites, New York Times editorial page. Billionaire donors, they've been on the phone for a week and a half. Washington politicians, even though Mark Warner has now canceled his meeting. The Congressional Black Caucus, by the way, not really happy with all of these people trying to substitute their elitist viewpoints for that of millions of Democratic primary voters. Hollywood moguls, hey there, Ari, and Ms. Disney, and of course, MAGA extremists. So Biden allies now, this is what they're going to say. Oh, wait a second. So you're telling me that media elites and billionaire donors and Washington politicians and Washington moguls, they all think that they can substitute their judgment for the judgment of millions of Democratic primary voters?
So what I assume happened is Joe Biden was either watching this. I don't know if he watches the news, but if he does, he watches, like Trump watches people who talk nicely about him. He doesn't watch his critics, but more likely one of Joe Biden's staff members saw this tweet and saw him talk about this, and they decided to have Joe Biden call in and try to capitalize on this new narrative that they're anti-elites, that these insider elites, these are the guys that handpicked Joe Biden and forced him on the Democratic Party. They didn't want Bernie Sanders. I mean, they rigged the election for him. These are guys who, not just the people who run the Democratic Party, but these people who are big donors, the guy for Netflix and some of these other donors. And Joe Biden is now spitting in their face, and all the media people, all these papers and things that Nika read, New York Times, Washington Post, all these so-called elitist, liberal, newspapers and things. And so Joe Biden is now running against them like they're the ones trying to force him out. When there was a poll out that 70% of Americans, we all saw the debate, and I'm going to show you David Axelrod, who Joe Biden got particularly pissed about because he wrote a letter, about this very subject and saying, I'm not doing this for millionaires. So that was that whole spiel. So Joe Scarborough put it out there. And again, they can't think of things themselves. They can only copy. Like, how many of these things came from the truth community? Originally, the truth community called the powerful people the elites. And they, disparage us all the time, telling us how crazy we are. And then they steal our shit, right? Just like the Cubies, the right-wing truthers who aren't really truthers, stole our shit. And now, I don't even call people elites because of the connotation of the stupidity of people who are behind it. They can't think of their own trendy things or their own terms, so they got to copy us, and they always do it. And so now, they're running against Trump, who's an elite. I mean, Trump's a billionaire who tried to co-opt this message, and they're trying to use it like Joe Biden's going rogue, and they're trying to take him out, and it's because he's got Parkinson's, and everybody knows it, right? They all knew it. They all have known it for a long time. They're all complicit here, and they're trying to bail on him, and Kamala knew. So, I mean, if this comes out, which it looks like it is, and it comes out that he does have Parkinson's, and they have to reveal that this was a diagnosis, I don't know if they can now, but lots of people are going to hear it and believe it, because it's going to be reported, and they're going to have to ask Kamala when she knew, and she says she doesn't know. That means that she's, they want her to run on Joe Biden's record, but why wouldn't they tell the vice president that the president has a debilitating condition, and you better prepare because, this is why she's so vigorously defending him, because she knows he isn't going to last very long. She knew that anyway, but she already has more information than we do, which is he has Parkinson's. So all of this stuff, right? So then I found a piece of where Joe Biden called in, and I want to show you what they did afterwards. So first they talk to Reverend Al Sharpton, and Joe Biden calls him the most important figure in the civil rights movement. That shill and horrible person, Al Sharpton, who sold out, his own, all this stuff, right? He and that guy talks about how they should stick with Biden. And then Donnie Deutsch, I believe it is, he's a guy who used to be on Trump's Celebrity Apprentice, and they were good friends, says this.
Voters, he mentioned others. I think that Joe Biden will beat Donald Trump. And he ended with what I said earlier, poking the bear. Keep going after Trump. They have him locked away in the room. He'll break through the locks and come out. If he hears Joe Biden keep attacking him, they won't be able to lock him out. He'll throw them donuts down and go for it.
So this is right after they just interviewed Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was talking about how Trump has been disappeared for 2 weeks, and not really 2 weeks, it's since the debate. Because it's just smart for him not to say anything, right? It's hard for Trump not to say anything, but he should basically say nothing. Because this is really bad. The way this is playing out, it's horrible for the Democrats, and it just keeps on getting worse.
Deal with the donuts. Hey, Donnie, final thought to you. As an ad man, as a branding expert, your thoughts?
First of all, as an American, we got to get it right this week. I mean, we are staring at the abyss. And what I said earlier, we have to look hard. Is he the best choice going forward for us? I think we have to look really, really, really hard at that because there's too much on the line.
All right. And this is from the Associated Press. Very quickly summarizing what the president said. AP, 9:51 a.m., Washington, D.C., Biden insists to MSNBC that average Democrats want him to stay in the race and, quote, I don't care what the party elites want. Sounds like the type of race that Joe Biden wants to frame out.
Absolutely digging in, but also making the point that the other options play into Trump's way.
Right.
Which is going against the process
He also said,
of our democracy.
He also said anybody that wants to challenge him, come to the convention. Come to Chicago, challenge him in Chicago. We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see what happens.
That does it for us this morning.
Okay, so if Parkinson's the truth, which it seems like it is, right? Makes sense. That guy seems credible. It's a number of sources, and it's something. Joe Biden has something. And what the guy said, the doctor said that I showed you earlier, was go take an MRI, get a scan of your brain, and we'll show you where the deterioration is, right? You can't dispute where there's deterioration in a photograph of your brain. Like these are, in terms of the allopathic medical model, these are some of the breakthroughs. I don't like x-rays. I don't like any of these things. I think they're harmful. But, in terms of diagnosis and finding out what's going inside your body, an ultrasound, these things, right? And they can take, a scan of his brain and see where there's been deterioration, right? And they can show it to him and everybody else. But they're not doing that because that would mean they were liars and they have known about this for a while and they refuse to deal with reality. And now they have set up this, not only the situation with Trump, but put America at risk by having a senile president. Like there's going to be a worldwide knowledge that America had a senile president and the other guy was Trump. And so America's already, on the ropes in so many different ways that, this is a complete disaster. And so let's go to David Axelrod, who is responding to this letter that Joe Biden wrote attacking him and other so-called party elites. And so that's, I haven't watched it yet, but that's going to be epic. Okay, one of my friends just sent me this on Facebook. President Biden climbs a rock wall whilst riding a bike. He's fitter than a man half his age. MAGA hates this. That's him face planting there, which is hilarious. Biden assails Democrat elites as he fights to remain in the race. So this is a new headline, right? This is the tact that they're taking here. Party elites are trying to get him out when he has Parkinson's. And so one of those party elites, David Axelrod, Biden seemed to have an issue with, and he's going to respond. Here, this is starts here.
David, what do you make of these visits to the White House from a Parkinson specialist?
Well, I don't know what to make of it. I will say this, Anderson, I don't believe the president has Parkinson's disease. They say he doesn't, that he's not being treated.
It's just stupid. Like, it's just ridiculous. Of course he has something severe. But there's something here that he talks about the letter.
Seems determined and defiant and thinks he can do this. As long as he feels that, how does anything change?
Well, this has always been the case. It has always been his decision. What he said in that interview was that he didn't expect the leaders of the House and Senate to come to him and say, you're jeopardizing us and and our members, and that you don't want this to be your legacy. He said, that's not going to happen. They're all with me. And if they don't, I don't know what else would intervene. I don't think God Almighty is going to play a role here. It really has to be the
not in the way that anybody would like, right?
leaders of the Congress.
I mean, God's already playing a role, whether you like it or not. And Parkinson's is a part of that role. So let me say more about this. This is kind of something that should be an introduction to a video. Hopefully I'll remember to restate this in a future video. God is the truth, and the truth is always trying to get out, right? But the truth is multi-layered, or at least your journey to the truth goes through various layers, because life on planet Earth in itself is illusionary. Third dimensional reality is an illusion. Like I always give the example of that color is whatever the color of an object is, the object is rejecting that color. So light is hitting that object, and that object is absorbing all the colors except the one color that it looks like. So the sky looks blue because the sky is absorbing all the other colors in the rainbow, all the prismatic colors, and rejecting blue light. And so that's very interesting. Like, just that it's actually the rejecting of the color that makes an object have that color, right? But everything in our third dimensional reality can be broken down to an atomic level to a subatomic level, to an energetic level. Just like a website, there's code, there's code that gives the visual images, right? This thing that you're listening to isn't my voice. It is the reproduction of my voice in digital format, right? And there's code. There's computer code that make this. They're behind this recording. And so when you understand that material reality in itself is illusionary, and there's your soul, and your ability to perceive your soul is limited, and you can't perceive it with your senses, your mind, and these things. You can feel your soul. And that's not concrete. That's not some, scientific, factual type of materialistic, factual type of interaction. And so the truth is always there, but our perception of reality is distorted. Each person has their own, their own defense mechanisms, their own misconceptions, their own limited cognitive functioning and spiritual functioning, to where they change what they're seeing in front of them. That's why people disagree, because your reality, what you believe to be reality, and what I believe to be reality are two different things, right? And so a spiritual person is somebody who is working to get rid of those misconceptions, right? And is doing that by seeking the truth. And the truth is always there. If you ask God for an answer, you'll get that answer, right? But most people don't want to hear the truth. How many of you go to your loved ones and say, tell me the truth? Now, they're going to have their own, agendas and their own whatever. But at least say, give me legitimate feedback. How do you feel about me? Because most times people are lying to each other because they don't want to get into a fight. They don't want to, they're not telling you the truth about how they feel about you, right? And, sometimes it's positive. Sometimes people aren't able to say, I love you, or I think you're great. And, people have trouble giving other people compliments. Sometimes it's good news. But either way, people aren't seeking the truth about themselves. They're not looking for feedback, like Joe Biden in this circumstance, right? And so the truth is always there, and God is always there, but not in politics, because all of it's illusionary, right? Everything in the political spectrum, these politicians don't believe in what they're saying, and they take polls, and they have positions of, they have people who are secretly funding them and telling them what to do. They have handlers, and they have to tell you one thing, and then they're going to do something else, right? And so God is always there. But for Biden, he ain't interacting with God because he's not asking for the truth. The simple truth, he's unfit to be president. I mean, if presidency was real. But if he's going to be handled, if he's going to be micromanaged, he's going to have, people telling him what to do. Yeah, of course he could be president. I mean, as long as he has a pulse, they can They can wheel him out there as weekend like Bernie's. But part of his job is to go out and convince people he's doing the job and he's actually the one in power, that he's actually the president, that he's not, answering to a higher authority, and I don't mean God. I mean higher authority in terms of the people I call the controllers. Part of his job is to show that he can competently run the country, which, is just, even as an actor. And he can't do that. And so he therefore should step down, which everyone kind of sees, but he's not going to do that. But he's not going to, at least they're going to try to get him to stop running for president because he can't beat Trump. And that's, the sad state of affairs here. But they're not seeking anything that resembles the truth.
That letter he sent over this morning was pretty dismissive. I mean, there was no real acknowledgement of the concerns or addressing of the concerns that people had. He basically said, I'm done talking about it. I'm running, live with it. And here's my case against Donald Trump. And, that, as Ashley said, that didn't really resolve the fundamental questions. So I do think he's trying to run out.
Look at the forehead on this MNFer right here. So this guy, he was addressed in the letter, this whole elite thing that Biden's doing. Dark Brandon is back, Obama campaign advisor on Biden telling critics to challenge him. Dark Brandon is back. Dark Brandon is this meme, right? I have these various things that I keep up here. That's the Chucky King Charles. This is Trumpty Dumpty when the New York Post turned on Trump. This is the Greater Israel thing that I show you guys occasionally when I talk about that Israel is this according to the Bible. Israel isn't this little strip of land that it is now. It's all of this. And if God promised, which God doesn't promise anything, but if the Jewish people believe and Christians believe that God promised this to the Jews, this is what God promised, right? According to them, their belief. And now I have this, Parkinson's disease symptoms. So I've added that. On my other browser, I have this. This is Dark Brandon, right? And so I have these things that separate my videos. I used to have, I keep up tabs for both channels. I'm not making content on my other channel right now, but I'll, make a video per week when I get done with this busy time. I'm making long videos here. But I put, like the tabs that I want to cover on one side of these various things that I keep up. But this was a Dark Brandon meme, F Joe Biden, the Dark, Brandon. Let's go Brandon. And they decided to hijack that and talk about him going Dark Brandon. But, he mumbles and he has that soft, what the doctor was describing as this symptom of Parkinson's, right? And, he's obviously got something and he fits the symptoms for this. And you have experts coming forward and saying he has it. And obviously, nobody wants to admit that they've known about this or they're concerned about this, right? David Axelrod just lied through his frickin' teeth. And so this is, Dark Brandon's coming back? No, he's not, right? Like, he's not being targeted. He's not a victim here. He failed in the debate because he's been failing regularly for the past 4 years because he's not, a healthy adult, right? He's got some kind of deteriorating neurological condition and, his brain is no longer functioning the way it needs to, and he's not fit to be president. This is this guy.
Biden and to your fellow Democrats.
Well, look, I think he should step aside. I think it's become clear that he's not the best person to carry the Democratic message. And here's the thing. We have an incredibly strong message and record to run on. And
yeah, you do. You guys are great. There's another, Jake Tapper was addressing Parkinson's there.
Over the weekend, the media feeding frenzy over President Biden and his place on the ticket saw elected Democrats tripping and falling all
A party civil war.
over themselves to have their names appear in stories calling on Biden to quit the race and go be elderly somewhere else. This despite a new round of swing state polls published on Saturday showing the presidential race remains essentially tied, with the only change since the debate being in Joe Biden's favor. Biden leads Trump in both Michigan and Wisconsin in the Monmouth swing state polls, two must-win states for the incumbent. Still, the drumbeat to quit is so deafening, Biden called into Morning Joe this morning to reiterate that he's staying in the race.
Okay, so this is Joy, who's not a Joy Reid, defending Biden. She's one of the few people. Well, she's on MSNBC. So this is today, Tuesday.
Hispanic Caucus, which is reaffirming its support behind President Biden, though some caucus members have either called for Biden to drop out of the race or have said they are
Trump out of the race?
Concerned. The caucus as a whole released a statement that reads in part, quote, "We stand with President Biden and Vice President."
So they're pushing for this thing here, right?
I had spoken to the president over the weekend. I have spoken with him extensively. He made clear then, and he has made clear since, that he is in this race. The matter is closed. He had reiterated that this morning. He has reiterated that to the public. Joe Biden is our nominee. He is not leaving this race.
Okay, so if this was Trump, and Trump was acting this way, if he had the same way of walking, and Trump had that disastrous debate performance, these same people would all say that he has Parkinson's or something like it. And if doctors came out and said Parkinson's, they all jump on it and say Trump is not fit. And Trump wouldn't back down because he's a selfish prick like Biden. But, it's only because it's Biden and their guy. And so that's what's wrong with America. This is what's going to take America down, at least, that attitude. The selfishness and the ability to rearrange reality based in your personal desires and needs and things like that. I want to cover some of this stuff. I'll see what else happens tomorrow. But here's Fetterman on this Psaki and Fetterman together again.
The fallout and calls for the president to step aside. There is one senator who has stood firmly behind President Biden, and it seems like the president noticed.
The other guy?
I'm not going to make this a speech. I promise, John. By the way, I got John.
There's John's witch there.
Fetterman, I don't need much else.
How about a working nervous system?
I'm about to point to the only person that's ever kicked Trump's ass in an election right now.
Well, you didn't point to yourself? Look at him. Look at this. Listen to this freaking Fetterman smash.
I hope the media is hearing that. Remind you that. Humiliated Trump, broke him, and he had to lie about it.
He had to lie about it.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Senator, thank you so much for joining me this evening. So,
when are they going to let you out of the dungeon, Fetterman?
you were someone, we just showed a bunch of it there. You have staunchly defended the president. You said he had a great day yesterday. You said that earlier today. He came out swinging this morning with a letter. He made an appearance on Morning Joe. He's made it very clear he's not leaving. But
yeah, it was horrible. Like, it was bad. All of it was a guy who's deteriorating mentally. Their denial is wonderful. Their inability to be honest here.
Since then, several of your Senate colleagues have come out with statements. They've talked about concerns their constituents have expressed.
Like, some part of me almost hopes he gets elected. I mean, that would mean Kamala would be, I mean, you know, just the joke of it, right? Like, this is how bad America's gotten. Like, you know, I mean, and people say, the one thing I'll say to Republicans is, you know, this attitude that that Biden didn't get 80,000 votes and 80 million votes. And, you know, yeah, Biden didn't get 80 million votes. The hatred of Trump, anybody they put in there against Trump is going to draw a lot of votes. And you say, well, they're not enthusiastic about that candidate. No, they hate Trump, right? So many people are fearful and have hate towards Trump that they'll turn out and vote just against Trump. Like, you have to be aware of that, right? I don't know if Joe Biden got all 80 million votes, but he could have, because there's 80 million people out there who would vote against Trump. There's no doubt about it. Like, there's, you know, this is less than a fourth of the population. You know, let me add this. It's Wednesday. I'm editing. You know, when there's hatred for a team, like anybody but Duke, like people hate Duke University in basketball. A little bit less so now because the coach quit. But, you know, Tom Brady or, you know, any of these quarterbacks, any of these people that are hated. There are basketball players, LeBron, you know, they might have fans, but they're also hated. And people will turn out to jeer the other team and to jeer the players, to talk smack to the players, and there's more enthusiasm around anger and hatred than there is for liking people and admiring them. And so people will turn out to vote against somebody more than they'll vote for somebody. The energy's more there. And so that's what Trump's provided for the Democrats. People will turn out just to vote against Trump. And no matter who it is, they're voting against him. You can run anybody else, and those people are going to, the people that hate Trump are going to vote against him. And so then when you say Biden didn't get 80 million votes, well, of course he didn't. But the hatred of Trump easily could have. Biden might have got all those votes. Like I'm not saying there isn't cheating. Of course, the mail-in ballots, there's possible cheating. But either way, you have to admit that hate is a motivating factor for voting, and there are lots of people who hate Trump.
They've said the president needs to prove he's up for it, including two who are facing a tough re-election fight. And you've been through that before. What does the president need to do to keep others from jumping ship, other colleagues of yours?
Well, I mean, it cracks me up. It's like
it cracks me up when I'm not depressed and suicidal.
If no one's run for president, let alone won and has been the president, giving
Get out of the basement, Fetterman. Fetterman in basement. Fetterman's not smash basement.
advice, that's kind of a strange place to sit there. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm going to tell Tom Brady, you know, oh, you really need to hold harder in the pocket or something. I mean,
You mean the Tom Brady retired because he's too old? Great example, Fetterman.
It's strange. And
It's so strange.
It's bizarre when people are saying, well, he's the best president in my lifetime, but, I mean,
He's got dementia.
like it should stop right after he's the best president of your lifetime. And he had a rough debate. We all know that, and we're still talking about that. And I'm not really think it's really helpful. That's going to be our guy. That's my guy. That's our president. And I like to keep pointing out again and again, there's only one man or a person in America that's beat Trump in an election, and that's Joe Biden. And my money is going to be on the guy that kicked his ass in 2022, and he's going to win again.
Yeah, well said, well articulated.
Well, Senator, I mean, they're not just speaking from their own point of view. They're talking about what they've heard from constituents. And these are people who represent a range of states, including states that will be in play, right, coming up this election. And they do say they love Joe Biden, but they're not questioning his record. They're questioning whether he can beat Donald Trump. So I guess it's how does he...
No, they're questioning his mental capacity to be president and the lack of faith. You know, to make this about him winning or losing, and not whether it's either he has dementia or he doesn't. And have him take some frickin' cognitive tests. Have him take a cognitive fucking test, a 4-hour one like the guy said, and screen out for any of these issues. Have Trump, both of them take one. You know, make it a dare. Like both of them take these 4-hour cognitive tests with an independent set of doctors. And if they approve them, it's not some shill type of thing. And, you know, I don't know if Trump's going to pass or what he would, you know, would be great for Trump, but Biden would certainly fail. And that means he should be out of the office right now. And this idea that he has Parkinson's, I hope it doesn't die down. But, you know, either way, I don't care because it's really entertaining to watch these liars lie when, you know, everyone kind of gets a sense that Joe Biden is breaking down mentally. I just want to say this here. I'm editing, and I have a bunch of things that I'm going to talk about, this cognitive testing, all these things, right? But it should be mandatory for these candidates and people in office. These offices, right? There are lots of jobs where cognitive testing, you know, think about how athletes have to go through all these tests for performance-enhancing drugs, as well as CTE, you know, they have to go get tested for concussions and concussion protocol and things like that. And then people in the military and a lot of these governmental jobs, they have to submit to lie detectors and these other tests, right? People in the CIA or whatever it is. You know, so the president should have to be tested cognitively a lot, like throughout their presidency, and the candidates as well. The cognitive testing should be mandatory. Like it should be mandatory in lots of jobs, Congress and Senate. I mean, it just makes sense. Because if you don't have the ability to pass those tests, you shouldn't be in that position. It's that simple. And so this should be mandatory. And like we've seen it over and over again, it's an issue. And if Biden took these tests, he would fail, he'd be out of office, and this would be a no-brainer. pardon the pun, the unintentional pun.
Does he bring them back to the fold? Does he need to bring them back to the fold? Or are you telling me you don't think that matters?
I mean, he's going to keep running the kind of campaign that he did. My colleague just said unscripted. It's like, well, we did a whole day of it yesterday of unscripted, and it was a great day for the president as well.
You know, somebody sent me one of these unscripted days and said that was good viewing. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm not going to look at it today. When I get a chance, I'll watch it. But, you know, it's getting good, right? Okay, still Tuesday, July 9th, late at night. I'm basically getting ready for bed. But I turned on the TV, and the news was on MSNBC or CNN. And there's a panel of people there, and there's a woman there saying how everybody in the Democratic Party wants to get back to business as usual, like they were accepting Joe Biden not stepping down. And they wanted to focus on Donald Trump and Agenda 2025 and these things. And the guy, you know, I'm not sure if he was a Republican or a Democrat, some guy, random guy. And he commented, you know, when we're watching him, I think he was a Democrat. When you're watching him, this was a scripted event and you're still waiting for him to have a gaffe. Everyone's just waiting for him to fall apart, right? And the woman said, no, we weren't. And he said, well, you just said that's what you were doing. She goes, oh, I was joking, right? And I'm like, well, you know, maybe you wishful thinking, MNFers. I mean, like I said before, if this was Trump, you would totally be saying he has Parkinson's. And it's not you know, you guys all say you believe in science, right? And so this guy clearly has some major cognitive issue. This doesn't matter whether he's the best or worst person to beat Trump. I mean, in terms of being a human being, it matters that our president has a cognitive issue, and it's out there now for the world to see. And that you would be so partisan, and so you would be so selfish and so myopic, right? That he would stay in the race and everyone would fall behind him just because they don't really have a choice and pretend that he doesn't have Parkinson's, right? Because Parkinson's is out there. And, you know, not that he's just has an onset of it, but there's some cognitive issue, some neurological disorder, right? Some deterioration. And everybody can see it. And the Democrats, and, you know, Trump sucks. I'm not, you know, Trump is, again, I'm just waiting for Trump to disappear. But the Democrats, who are these science people, and, you know, forced everyone to get wanted to have mandatory, you know, vax mandates, and they pushed the masks and these things. And, you know, it used to be that liberal people were the ones who were pushing herbal medicine and alternative medicine to allopathic medicine, but they just betrayed themselves and lost their shit, right? And, you know, this guy should be tested. There's doubt about his cognitive function, and even if it's a possibility, he should be tested and it should be transparent. And the Republicans can bring his staff in and get them under oath. I saw some headline from Fox News, and they want this to happen. Get the staff under oath and say, is he fit, and do you know anything about Parkinson's and these things, right? And so that's how bad it is. Like, it's that bad. And it's wonderful for me. Like, I'm, you know, digging this, you know, because it shows you what we know. Like, if these people were good people and they were competent and we were going in the right direction and you could have faith in them, then I wouldn't do what I'm doing here. I mean, I'd talk about the spiritual things, you know, but I wouldn't this would be no pockets of the future. But this is, you know, the collapse of a civilization, because there's one right thing to do here, and get the guy with Parkinson's out of a job that's really important and bring in somebody else, right? And, you know, they don't really have anybody else. I mean, they do, but they all suck, and, you know, it's still going to suck no matter what. But that would be the right thing to do. And that would be the right thing for him to do, his family to do, the Democratic Party to do, something bigger than politics. And, you know, when somebody has a life-altering condition and they get something that's going to kill them or make their lives, you know, much worse than they were before, some physical condition, mental deterioration. And, you know, we know what happens for people who deal with someone with Alzheimer's, and it's no treat, right? I know a number of people, some of my viewers out there have, you know, these situations. There's some woman whose husband has had mental deterioration since, like, I think she must be in her early 50s or something, and he started to have issues back when they were like 30 years old. and she stuck by him and taking care of him to her credit, right? But, these things are really difficult on people. Bruce Willis. And, this is, it's kind of a tragedy, and it's a horrible way for things to end for people. And, that's what's happening here. And, and he's president, right? And so, they're just being horrible about this. I mean, I can't even say it's a fail. It's whatever's worse than a fail. Like it's evil, right? Like this is real evil shit going on. But anyways, a few more things to get to. I'll get to them tomorrow. But I just want to add that here. Okay, today is Wednesday, July 10th. So there's been some developments. There's been a Gretchen Whitmore sighting from Morning Joe. Totally Gretch or something like that. We'll get into that. So Gretch. She wrote a book with that title. I'm missing it, but we'll find out later what it is. Big press conference coming up, which we'll get to, for Biden. Big stakes. The stakes are high. And then there's this. So let's start here.
President, founder of Eurasia Group and G0 Media, Ian Bremmer. Ian, good to have you. What do foreign leaders or allies think of President Biden right now?
They don't think he can serve another 4 years. And I will say that is true of every leader that I have met with that's attending the NATO summit. Doesn't matter if they come from the right or the left wing of their respective political spectrums. This isn't news to them.
Yeah, it's not news to anybody. I dubbed him Mr. Magoo, and I want to talk about how right that was. JoJo Magoo. Those of you who understand are familiar with the Mr. Magoo character from cartoons, because, this is about them forcing Magoo on everybody. They Magooed all over the American people. And so it's come full circle. I haven't really talked about his nickname as much lately, but today it's going to be a big day. So think about this in terms of Mr. Magoo being president, and them having to deal with, everybody pretending that the guy's mentally competent and he can see, in Mr. Magoo's case, and he can't, right?
They've reported this from the G7 summit. They talked about this when they met with the president in Normandy. It's not that they don't like him. In fact, they're deeply concerned. NATO allies, more than other countries around the world, very concerned about what it would mean if Trump were to become president, given his stated policies on Russia, Ukraine, and on NATO, and on the European Union. So, it's not like they're saying, we don't like Biden, we want him to go. They just don't think he's up to it. They increasingly think he's going to lose. And so what they're asking is, what's the state of play? What's going to happen? Is he going to step down? Who's going to make him do it? If he does step down, who's going to be there?
Nobody. Right now, it doesn't look like anybody can.
Has become, you'd think it would be all about Ukraine and all about NATO.
See, the subtlety that they're trying to deal with, Biden is oblivious. He's very heavily defended, very defensive, which people are freaking out about. And, in the Democratic Party. And it's going to take an atomic bomb to get this MNFer out of the race and out of the White House. He's not going anywhere. He's locked in as much as Trump is. And, Trump was. And the way that Trump went out in 2020. And this guy is not any different. And what's great about this is everything that they say they believe in, everything they hate about Trump, Biden represents and they represent. They're completely enabling him. And the subtlety, which you'll see that they're trying to hint at, Mr. President, they're trying to hint, maybe suggesting things closed doors. That's not going to be enough. They got to come out and say he's got Parkinson's. And once they do that, this has been floated out there, and it's not being taken as seriously as you would think it would be. But it means that the media and the Democratic Party are completely complicit in a guy who has a disease that's debilitating and, eroding his ability to function. And they've been covering up for years, right? This is wonderful. It's just this is the moment, right? This is the moment. This is the arc of the Biden disaster, the Mr. Magoo disaster.
But the reality is the United States is the linchpin of NATO, and if they can't count on the U.S., they've got a very serious problem.
Do they think that Joe Biden is not up for campaigning, or do they think that he's not up for actually governing?
Not up for campaigning the way he campaigned 4 years ago. And I mean, that's not just about the debate. That's even true with the ABC Stephanopoulos interview. It's true with the way they have limited the amount of time that he has with the public. Much more, sort of pre-scripted and shorter statements, fewer bilaterals, shorter bilaterals with world leaders. They all notice it. Again, these are his principal interlocutors around the world. These are his principal allies. They have all seen it happen. And
He wasn't good to start with, and he's gotten way worse.
it's not that they're worried
Parkinson's.
that Biden is not capable of being president right now. They're not saying he needs to resign. That I didn't hear that.
We didn't hear that, but that's what should happen because they don't care about America. They're thinking about themselves. But this is an embarrassment, and it's come to fruition, which is wonderful. This is Box of the Future 101 here. Karine Jean-Pierre is excellent at her job, and her job is covering up lying, being defensive, playing the victim card, and being really annoying and being so unlistenable that you just tune her out after a while, realizing you can't get a straight answer out of her. Like, she's excellent at this, right? So.
I just want to get a clarification on the letter that was sent last night.
Sure, absolutely.
From Dr. O'Connor. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't seem to explicitly describe the nature of Dr. Kennard's meeting with Dr. O'Connor. So can you say whether that one meeting was related to care for the president himself?
I can say that it was.
So Kennard is the guy who's the Parkinson specialist, and she wouldn't mention his name yesterday, but today she is. Like, this is how they drip this stuff out there.
It was okay, great. And can I just ask why that information that was released last night just wasn't said at the briefing yesterday?
Well, no. Actually, a lot of what is in the letter was said at the briefing, to be very, very clear.
To be very, very clear, I wasn't, like, she lies and she's deceptive and she's belligerent. She's a POS. And she's always, like, aggressive with them, like she's the victim and they're horrible people. Playing as many of the cards that she has to play, right? The victim cards. And she's, it's hard to listen to her. She just shuts everything. She sucks the energy out of the room. And these guys must be really frustrated, but they're not able to get any kind of movement in terms of truthful interaction. So she's really doing a good job.
Said many of the things that were laid out in the letter was actually repeated right here behind this lectern at this podium yesterday. It was
said that. Hold on.
Nobody believes that, but they all know she's lying. But she just shuts it down.
I said many of the things. Many of the things.
Many things.
Many of the things. And we got clarification, obviously, from Dr. O'Connor.
Wait, you getting Parkinson's, bro?
But it was in line with what I said. When I said only 3, right? I said only 3 visits that this particular doctor had. I said a neurologist. What I was not able to confirm is the name, and the reason why is because we do not share private information.
Okay, we've said this like 20 times. It's these details that don't matter because they're not being honest. Like, they know he has Parkinson's. They know he has whatever he has. If it's Parkinson's, it's Parkinson's. But if something else, it's something else. They know it.
That is something that we respect, and we wanted to make sure that we protected our consultants here that work with the White House Medical Unit, their security as well. And so that is the one thing that I was not able to confirm. Obviously, Dr. O'Connor's letter confirms that, but we had to get permission from Dr. Kennard and also the president in order to put that information. And it is not normal, and that also states that in Dr. O'Connor. But many of the things that I said right here at this podium is in the letter.
And can I just also ask a little, this is the second time in less than a week where the briefing had prompted a need for later clarification on questions about the president's health. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to...
So I disagree.
She disagrees with that. Of course she does.
Disagree, Sungmei. It's not. Yesterday, a lot of the things that I said right here in this briefing room, I know you were not in the briefing room, it's in the letter. It was.
Yeah, the letter's a lie too. Like, you're lying and the letter's a lie. It's all lies. like she's using the letter as an authority because it comes from a doctor who's lying because he knows what Joe Biden is incapable of doing his job. They're not testing him because if they tested him, they would fail, right?
Was in the letter. It was being incorrectly assumed and insinuated that the president had seen Dr. Kennard more than 3 times. I said that it was only 3 times that the president...
So, okay, what are the other 5 times he came or the other 9 times he came, depending on what you're hearing? He came there 12 times.
And had seen a neurologist. I didn't confirm the name, but I did say it was only 3 times. It was being incorrectly assumed and insinuated that the president was being treated for Parkinson's. I said right here that the president was not being treated for Parkinson's. I actually went a step further and...
Oh, so he's not being treated? He's being treated. He's not being treated, but he has it? Or are you treating him and not calling it Parkinson's, right? Because if they tested him for Parkinson's, then they're screwed. Because Freedom of Information Act, it'll come out. If they did these neurological tests, he'd fail. And so if they tested him for these things, then they would be on the hook for it. And, you know, if 3 years ago they found out he had Parkinson's and they've been covering it up, so they have doctors come in, they all know what he has. They don't talk about it like that, but they give him the medications and treatment for Parkinson's without calling it that, right? And so, you know, they're just... it's a really sick game of deception here.
And said he wasn't taking medication for Parkinson's. I said that right here. It was also being assumed and insinuated that Dr. Kennard was someone who only worked on Parkinson's when, in fact, he's a general neurologist. That was something that Dr. O'Connor was actually able to confirm, that he was
Okay, it's just silly. It's silly stuff. And, like, she just drains you. You don't have the ability to listen to her because she just sucks so bad. And she's being deceptive, but like they have all these little intricate ways of manipulating the truth. You're never going to get the truth because they're never going to tell it. Because the truth is Biden should step down because he doesn't have the capacity to do his job. And they, you know, and it's been a while, so they can't just, you know, the whole thing, right?
Does President Biden commit to serving a full second term if reelected?
Yes.
Thanks.
Stupid question.
Thank you. We know the president says that his health is fine, but it's just his brain, and that he's sharpest before.
He was joking, by the way. I just want to make sure that that's out there. And he was making a lighthearted joke as he was speaking off. He's speaking off the cuff, and he was making a joke. You know the president; he likes to joke a lot. He's the same guy who says, "I know I look 40," right? So he likes to make jokes. It is a joke. I think people laugh when he says it.
Well, he
So
also
it is a
said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up...
He's got such a douchey haircut.
...an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people.
He's got a team.
He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
So, Kevin McCarthy just said that when he was the speaker, many times when we had meetings in the Oval Office, Jill was there as well. When the First Lady's in these meetings, is she making decisions or is she just advising the president?
No, the president is the president of the United States. He makes decisions.
Okay.
Jill, that was she just hates him. That's a hatred smile. Jill, Dr. Jill Biden, she's in the meetings.
Another family member. President Biden has told me before, he and his son don't have any business dealings together. So what is Hunter Biden doing in White House meetings?
Are you talking about the meeting where they came together from
gross.
Camp David, and the two of them walked to the president's meeting and he was there?
There's a report that aides were struck by his presence during their discussions.
Look, I'm certainly not going to get into a private conversation.
Okay, so it's a mess. Okay, so I really dislike the douchey family. The dad douchey and the little douchey here. But this guy's in his heyday because he's got his adversary, Karine, whatever her name is, Karine Jean-Pierre, on the ropes.
And are you guys just not, since February, testing President Biden for Parkinson's or for dementia, because if he gets a bad result, it's all over that day.
Again, as I've said many times before, the president has had a fulsome, comprehensive,
just lying, just coming out and lying, because that's the question, right? And the answer is they know he has Parkinson's, or whatever he has, they know what it is, and they're treating him for it. But if they diagnose him with it and they test him for it, then everyone's going to know, and they can't withhold that information. It's going to come back to bite them. So they're not testing him, but they know what he has, and they are giving him whatever he needs to, and they're not calling it treatment for Parkinson's or whatever, because he can't run the country and be the president with Parkinson's. So that's the lie.
The doctor, just play one on TV. But I know
that's
that
scary.
that is scary. But I know that, especially as adults get into their 80s, health conditions can pop up more than just once a year when he's getting his physical. I think if my wife saw me on TV misspeaking or saying the wrong thing or seeing a change in my appearance, she would probably say, let's go to a doctor just to make sure that you are okay, you have a family, you have an important job. Why doesn't anybody in the president's family urge him just to go to get checked out to say the coast is clear?
Okay, so just to step back just a little bit, because I think you weren't in the briefing room last week. I don't want to go backwards, but just to share a little bit about that night. The president said it was a bad night.
Okay, so we all heard it. He watched the briefing, right? The issue here is, I just said this earlier, but I'll repeat it here because it's worth repeating. And what Ducey alluded to, they can't test him. If they test him, he's going to fail. That's that simple. After a night like that and a guy of this age, and back in February there was a devastating poll, but there's been evidence of his physical and cognitive breaking down. Most Americans, 70% of Americans, think he's too old to be president and too old to run for president. And so he has no confidence. The Democratic Party's turning on him. And a cognitive test and an MRI scan could make all that disappear. So why not do it? Well, he can't because he'd fail, right? It's that simple. So his family, they all know he has it, and they're still pushing him out there. The Democratic Party that's around him, the people around him that are pushing him out there, the people who are enabling him, and all the news media who've covered and not covered for him and not covered these breakdowns that he's been having for 4 years and say, hey, look, he's too old. Everyone, he has some sort of cognitive issue. Again, it's not too old because there's people in that age that don't have cognitive issues like this, right? But even then, you just start breaking down. You start, you don't have the energy for it. You don't have the testosterone. You don't have the fight anymore. You just don't have it. You don't have the ability to sustain work. You don't have as much energy as you used to, right? There's this nice sweet spot where you're not a young dope anymore, and but you still have enough energy to do the job. And that's somewhere between 40 and 70, 65. I mean, 70 at the I mean 70 is kind of old. I mean 60 is old, right? So then whatever it is, people have their own people age differently, right? But in that is someone who's 80 years old and had the kind of night he had, mandatory cognitive testing, right? Like everyone would say, we got to find out what's going on with them. But they already know. And they haven't given them official tests because once they do that, then they're on the hook for, we diagnosed him with Parkinson's 3 years ago, but we kept him in office. Like, that would destroy the Democratic Party and the media the way it is. It would if, there was any accountability and people had any kind of a standard, which they don't have, right? And so, that's everything you need to know about this, right? Okay, so I watched Morning Joe a little bit this morning, and they mentioned Gretchen Whitmer, so I went back because I had it recorded and grabbed that clip. But, well, let's go through it. It starts here with, I think, Gretchen Whitmer.
And I appreciate both of your insights very much. Thank you, doctors. Willie?
Joining the conversation at our table here in New York, Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She is the author of the new book, True Gretch, What I've Learned About Life, Leadership, and everything in between.
True Gretch. What a piece of shit. True Gretch. It's True Gretch. It's True Paulie. Everything you need to know about Paulie and my life and leadership and everything in between. Like, how superficial is that, right? Now, she's going to give her full endorsement of JoJo Magoo, but she's putting out a book, and it's election year, right? And this is what happened to Kristi Noem. Remember, she put out a book, and she got railed for that. That she was, that book was part of her way to get on TV, like Gretchen Whitmore, and, promote herself at a time when they need, I don't know, possible new presidential candidate, right? But she's really supporting Joe Biden.
Governor, it's great to have you with us here in New York. Good morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So we're going to talk a lot about the book in just a moment, but want to get your reaction to what we've seen in the last couple of days. We had Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado coming out publicly last night and saying he doesn't think Joe Biden can win this election. He says Joe Biden's been a great president. He thinks he's one of the best presidents in modern American history, but just doesn't think he's the guy to do it. Do you believe that Joe Biden can defeat Donald Trump in November?
I do, and I am a co-chair of the campaign. I have spent quite a bit of time with the president over the last week or so. I can tell you that debate was a lousy performance. Every one of us knows it. There's unanimity on that one. But the fact of the matter is, the president is, I think, showing that he is up to this moment, up to the job, up to the rigors. He's speaking with NATO. He's touring the country. He'll be in Michigan this week.
See, all the people that are being mentioned as his successor can't come out and say he's got dementia because it looks self-serving. But, he does, and Parkinson's, and, it's just a mess.
In part quote, the White House and the Biden campaign have suggested that the president's problems at the debate stemmed from an exhausting travel schedule and a cold. Such explanations do not inspire confidence. Yes, it's common for elderly people to bounce back more slowly from stressors. But even if jet lag and illness exacerbated normal cognitive limitations, said limitations remain, ready to surface again. And who knows when the next life and death decision will need to be made. Crises don't wait patiently for presidents to be fully prepared. Someone whose cognitive competencies can be compromised as badly as Biden's were by routine travel and a mere cold may be able to live a normal life, but they'd be hard-pressed to endure the rigors of negotiating with Congress or a foreign leader, much less making multiple rapid decisions when some future domestic or global disaster emerges.
So Morning Joe's all over the place. They have people who are really endorsing Biden, people who are semi-endorsing Biden, or saying he should stay in the race. Mika is strongly endorsing him. Joe is on the fence. And they bring out these heavy guns like this, right? And, it's just all a deception because everyone knows he's got to go. And they just won't say it. So then they bring all these other people in here.
Beloved, he is respected. And people want him to make that decision.
He has said he has made the decision. He has said firmly this week he is going to run. Do you want him to run?
I want him to do whatever he decides to do. And that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with.
Brian Nobles, we had Governor Gretchen Whitmer on the show earlier, and her support of Joe Biden staying right where he is was much more full-throated. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Mika, I think it's what Speaker Pelosi didn't say that was most revealing in that interview that you guys conducted.
So the background noise is these clowns walking behind him doing their Washington, D.C. bullshit, right? And they didn't use a noise canceling mic for whatever reason because, it's MSNBC. They're on hard times over there.
Last hour, she had the opportunity to say definitively that, yes, she believes that Joe Biden should be the leader of the party, and she chose not to. And honestly, her view in that interview reflects a lot of the ambivalence that we're seeing here on Capitol Hill. After this series of closed-door meetings that took place here yesterday, it did seem on Monday as though President Biden had stopped the bleeding in terms of congressional support. But inside those meetings, we know that there was a lot of tense conversation about the path forward. People really concerned about whether or not Joe Biden has what it takes to take on Donald Trump in the fall. And as a result, you saw more and more congressional Democrats either come right out and say they think that he should step down, or others stating publicly for the very first time that they don't believe that he can win in November. Party heavyweights still backing the president.
I'm with Joe. We're riding.
With the president remaining defiant and his allies urging support.
Every minute we spend focusing on questions and concerns about his debate, rather than questions and concerns about Trump's leadership, is a day that we are missing.
Some Democrats have concerns behind closed doors, describing Biden as shaky and expressing real doubts he has what it takes to beat Donald Trump. One Democratic House member telling NBC News, quote, "People are very frustrated that the president appears defensive and in denial. But many are not speaking out publicly."
Are you all on the same page?
No. What do you mean you're not on the same page? They're not even in the same book.
One of the Democrats who had privately called for Biden to withdraw, now saying he'll support Biden.
Whether they're concerned or not, is beside the point. He's going to be our nominee, and we all have to support him.
I can't express how wonderful this is, because the guy is obviously completely gone mentally. And, I'll get into this at the end of the video. And everyone knows he has to withdraw, but he just won't. And I don't know how they're going to be able to get him to do it, right? Like, I don't know, and his family and the people around him are going to be obstinate about this. And after that performance and everything he's done since, right? And so it's bad.
And I think it's also important to point out that even those Democrats who say that they're with Joe Biden do so almost reluctantly. The Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, I was in this press conference with him yesterday. He was asked a series of questions about his support for Joe Biden. All he would say is that I'm with Joe. He wouldn't talk about his concerns. He wouldn't talk about anything else related to the campaign itself, just didn't want to touch the topic. And so many of these Democrats that I've talked to say that they are really looking forward to this press conference that the president is going to hold on Thursday, a solo press conference as part of the NATO summit. There's a real belief that the president has to have an ace performance in that press conference to assuage some of these concerns that they have. But right now, Willie, it's a weird situation, because in many ways it's a worst case scenario for Democrats, because they're leaving the president to twist in the wind as to whether they onto whether or not they're going to stick with him long term. At some point, they've got to make a final decision whether or not they're all in or all out, and that time seems to be running out.
And what an extraordinary commentary on where we are, that the President of the United States must have a perfect press conference tomorrow for Democrats to continue to support him. It's amazing.
Really, it's not amazing, because, it's sad. But they said the same thing about his interview with Stephanopoulos. Okay, we'll see how the interview goes, and then something will happen this weekend. We got to get him out of there. And it was a disastrous interview. And apparently this live event that happened in Michigan, I believe it was, or wherever it was, Wisconsin, was a disaster, because somebody sent it to me and I haven't watched it yet. They said it's good fodder for my stuff here. So, he's screwing up left and right, and everything that he does is being held under a microscope, whether they're showing it on the news or not. I mean, he said good, or be the, do the goodest job I could, and they left that one. I mean, he's making these huge mistakes, and they're not calling him out on everything, but he's being completely scrutinized, and he's had these gaffes forever, so he's going to have them. Like, there's going to be some gaffes, there's going to be some, breakdowns mentally. There's going to be, just his walk and his gait and his staring, or his weirdness. Like, if you really look at him, there's a difference between having a conversation with somebody and doing a psychological assessment on him. And when you start looking at people in that way, like, you can just get used to, you're familiar with your family members and people around you. But all of a sudden you start to notice something, or somebody points something out, and you start noticing it, and you can't help but to notice it then, right? Like, it's something that you've ignored and didn't even know, and you're like, oh, this really bugs me. Or somebody says, oh, that thing they do really bugs me. You're like, what are you talking about? And they point it out, and you're like, oh, yeah, they do that. And then you can't help but to see it. And so he's going to fail at this press conference, and they're going to say, all right, it's time for you to go. And he's going to be like, F you, I ain't going. And then there'll be the other thing next week, right? This is just wonderful. So I aptly name Joe Biden Mr. Magoo. And it's playing out now, and I really have to bring attention to it because I'm good at nicknames. We all have our special talents, but the reason I call him Mr. Magoo was because his cluelessness as he shuffled around and was, walking through life, doing this Thorazine shuffle through life, right? The Parkinson shuffle, and just, tripping sometimes and making gaffes, doing things, bad things, stupid things, and showing everyone that he was incapable of doing the job. And they put Mr. Magoo in there, and the media and the Democratic Party has removed all these obstacles or gaslight people when he stumbles around and does some Mr. Magoo shit, right? And they've been saying, no, what you're seeing isn't real, and what are you talking about? He's fine, and he's sharp, and behind closed doors, he's great. But he's been doing these Mr. Magoo things, and somehow, Mr. Magoo should be dying left and right, but something just naturally comes in his way and saves the guy, right? And that's been happening for JoJo Magoo for a while now. Like I said, with the media and the, all the people there. But, that time has come to an end because when they chose this guy, and they chose him, they can talk about how they love democracy, but they had a bunch of candidates back in 2019, and they chose him. And they were choosing Kamala in the beginning, but she failed, but they chose her anyway for VP. But all these other candidates, like Bernie was the most popular. He had the most energy, right? Pete Buttigieg won one of the first 2 primaries, and he was young and up and coming and, represented a lot of things that the Democratic Party wanted to stand for in terms of bringing new people in, right? But Joe Biden was the guy that they thought either could beat Trump or that they could puppet or both, Weekend at Bernie's the guy. And so they chose this Mr. Magoo character in full knowledge that he had Parkinson's and he was going to be breaking down and be worse and worse over time. Like they knew it. Like he was, he was having these dementia moments. At least, they knew something like was going on. And like I said, if he was given a full neurological workup, he wouldn't have been able to be president then in 2019 and every year since. But they didn't test him. They hid him away. They didn't let him campaign in 2020, and they just micromanaged the guy, Mr. Magoo'd him, and just protected him. And they've just continuously done more and more of that, covering up for his gaffes, putting him in situations where he's less likely to fail, shortening his speeches, shortening his duration of his workday, and do all these things. But eventually, it was going to be too severe for them to do anything about it. And then they were on the hook because you can look back and see that this has been going on for years now. And to admit that this guy's had dementia is not good for anybody. And they have allowed it to go too far. It was like one of those mistakes you make, like you see in TV shows or movies, where a character will make a critical mistake and it's going to come back to bite him in the ass. But he'll, take responsibility and change and apologize to everybody and redeem himself, right? Or herself. Somebody be caught in a lie or deception or whatever it might be. And there'll be reasons for them to do it, to leave them off the hook. In this case, it would be that Trump had to go and this is the only guy to take Trump down and all these things, right? But, now it's come to fruition and the Democratic Party is helpless because he is the nominee and he's so oblivious and he's so far gone that the people around him won't talk to him. And I bet he'll cut him off if they question his ability to do the job. So they are finding it difficult to oust the guy. If they have to come in and run those neurological tests, and who in his inner circle going to let that happen? It's just wonderful, right? So the press conference is tomorrow, and we'll see Mr. Magoo full effect. He's going to make some mistakes, and people are going to say, no, now he really has to step down, and he isn't. I don't think he's stepping down. He might. I don't think he is, though. I don't know how they're going to get him to do it. I don't even think he'll respond to blackmail, and I think he's just so far gone. I don't think he'll say those words. I don't think he wants to admit that he's got issues, and I don't think he's even aware of his issues. And so they've probably hid it from him, right? And they're treating him for Parkinson's without his knowledge, or whatever it is, right? That's going on there, and his wife and all those people are complicit. This is wonderful. This is just, this is where we're proven right as truthers because they are just horrible people. This is evil. This is just bad decision making and then making these decisions over and over again to hide the truth and to, dismiss anybody who's telling the truth and censor them. And this guy has frickin' Parkinson's or something, and he's breaking down, neurologically, and it's something that could easily be proven through a scan and or extensive testing, and they ain't giving it to him because, he'll fail. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravato, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.